All right, everybody, what is going on? How's everybody doing? How's everybody doing? Yeah. Quick Movie Making says, what if this is the Wano analysis? You can interpret this however you like. I've also reacted to Jay's Wano video. This is the second Wano video I've reacted to. Everybody, let's get the stream likes up to 50 real quick. Bunfagum, thanks for the 10. If Zoro has a moment of leadership this arc, will that address your disappointment of his flip-flopping in Wano since he avoided leadership due to his misunderstanding of his conqueror's identity? So, how do I say this? In Wano, it's not like I thought it would be cool if Zoro gets a leadership arc in Wano. I thought that would be cool. But it's not like I needed him to specifically have a leadership arc. Like, that's something that I theorized about, obviously, but if you look at my commentary about Zoro throughout Wano, my biggest thing with Zoro in Wano is that I just wanted him to have some character storyline in Wano. Like, have something, like, have something. Like, like, he did things, I'm sorry, but character storyline, things that grow or develop his character in some way. That's what was kind of missing. So it didn't need to be the leadership thing, but keep in mind when I'm reading Wano Act 1, Act 2, looking at the way Zoe ended, looking at things that are likely coming for Zoro and Wano, like I talked a lot about how Zoro and Wano, he's going to get Conqueror's Haki, which he did. But the thing that I was trying to piece together while we were in Act 1 and Act 2 is like, okay, but what's his actual character storyline going to be, right? What's his character's arc going to be, if he's going to have that? What's his development going to be or whatever? And Oda threw a bunch of different little options at the wall, right? Like, there was the leadership aspect. That could be cool. There's the fact that this is his origin place. That started to develop. He never really sunk his teeth into that in terms of himself, like, understanding or connecting that he's coming from a Shimotsuki, but that was like a little interesting little route that things could go, right? There was his whole thing with Orochi and Yasue, right? That was, I think, the most compelling of all the options, right? That was something that was a very personal event for him that was literally his trigger heading into Wano Act 3, and he's talking about that at the end of Wano Act 3 with Hiyori and everything, about how his drive has become to avenge Yasue. Correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think Zoro mentions Yasue again over the course of the rest of the story. And, I don't think he mentions him again over the course of the rest of the story. There's no flashback, there's nothing. You could basically remove all of Zoro's Act 2 storyline. You could eliminate it. It's all filler. You could remove the whole thing, and the only thing that has to happen is, like, you could just say Hitetsu gives Zoro Enma. And I know Hitetsu himself didn't have Enma, but that's not the point. The point is that all that really matters is Zoro was handed Enma, right? That's it. And then that's his story. Because you could eliminate everything else, and then Act 3 for him plays out exactly the same way, exact same motivations, which is, I want to help Luffy defeat Kaido, or something like that. It's just the exact same. There's nothing that changes. His king fight, identical. No character motivation, no development, no nothing leads into the king fight. So that's my biggest thing with Zoro and Wano, which is it felt like in Act 2, I thought Oda's creating this sort of brilliant thing, because I'm like, oh my god, he's writing this stuff in terms of Zoro's heritage, and then also he's writing all of this stuff with Yasue, and then also maybe there's like a leadership component in here. So how does this all really come together? Because otherwise it's just pointless writing, right? To lay off this groundwork and there's nothing for the character, right? And so as soon as you're like, oh wait, all of that was fluff, it didn't actually matter at all to the story, that's what really bothers me. So even if Zoro's leadership stuff ends up being, let's say that comes into play here in Elbaf, well then that's good for Zoro's writing in Elbaf, but it doesn't change the fact that in Wano, there was nothing for Zoro. And you know what? It would even be more okay if there was nothing for... So, for example, let's say Robin, right? Robin had nothing in Act 1 and Act 2. No character type stuff in Act 1 and Act 2. But her fight was still good because it went to aspects of her character from before Wano, obviously. And it actually developed her character in a way, right? So I don't have any big thing about Robin in Wano, right? Because she got some good writing in her fight, right? But with Zoro, the problem was that he got arguably good writing in his fight. I don't know if it was the bad. I think the Mr. One stuff was better, but like he got some good writing in his fight. But the problem is that he was given a shit ton of material beforehand that is just irrelevant. It's just pure filler for the story. It does not matter one iota for the actual story, right? So it's worse to basically have a whole shit ton of writing and like character motivations explicitly set up. Like Zoro's like, I want to go avenge Yasue, things like that. It's not good to have all of that, and then it just goes nowhere. And then you get a fight that's totally unrelated to all of the setup, right? That's worse than just not even giving the character any stuff in the first place, and then just writing in whatever needs to be written in character-wise during the fight. Because the former basically fills the story with a bunch of bloat and a bunch of motivations and developments for the character, and then just kills it off, which is worse. That's just worse storytelling overall, because then you're reading Act 2 and you're just like, well, this doesn't go anywhere, this doesn't go anywhere. This, like, why are we reading a lot of this stuff? It's just random shit, basically. It would be like if it would be like I don't even know how to explain. Like, what's an equivalent example in One Piece? If we spent a bunch of time, I don't know, in Dressrosa learning about Riku and Kiros and Rebecca's backstory, and then they just didn't matter as characters later on. Like, what's the point of us reading all that? You know what I'm saying? Like, anytime there's a bunch of setup established for characters, the only reason you're doing that is because it has payoff later. Otherwise, it's just adding unnecessary bloat and, like, irrelevant material to the story that's not really doing anything, you know? Anyway. So it wouldn't do anything positive for Wano in retrospect. It would just be kind of like, oh, this is nice that it's picking up from there, you know? But it doesn't change the fact that in Wano itself, you're reading so much shit for Zoro in Act 2 that has nothing to do with anything. AJ, thanks for the 5. Loki times Shiroshi equals love forever. Shiroshi's 16. Loki's, what, 21 in One Piece years? Sorry, in Elbaf years? Maybe. I mean, that could be kind of cool. I mean, Loki's kind of woman is a chiffon, right? So he's not as traditionally beautiful. So, I don't know. I don't know about Shiroshi. I also think Loki's going to die. So there's that, which might put a damper on the romance. Samuel Hart, thanks for the 2. Taking me back to Wano High stream. Was there a Wano High stream? I don't think there was a Wano High stream. I think there was a Wano Drunk stream. I think there's a Wano Drunk stream. Roboske, I'm not drinking alcohol right now. This is 0 calorie, 0 caffeine Canada Dry. Oh, I did see this. Roboske, thank you for bringing this up. This is huge. And thank you for being a Yonko tier member for 6 months. Morj, did you see Arthur's tweet? Everybody listen up. Did you see Arthur's tweet about Gunko and Shamrock having the Saint title in Volume 1, 112? So this is just mind-blowing. I think that this might be... I know One Piece volumes have mistakes or like omissions, but I think this would probably be, to my knowledge, the biggest omission that we've ever seen, like mistake-wise. Because I know there's been time, I think there's been mistakes like he puts the scar in the wrong place for some character, or like somebody's not missing an arm who's supposed to be missing an arm. But those are things that we, the reader, are immediately able to tell those are mistakes, right? Like, because we already know what the characters are supposed to look like, so it's like, oh, Oda just fucked up, right? This is very, very different, because, here, let me pull this shit up. This is maybe the biggest screw-up I've ever seen in a volume. Maybe the biggest. Sorry, not volume. Weekly release version. Okay? Because, look at this. So this is genuinely huge, because these are 2 major important characters being introduced here. Like, incredibly important characters. These are like the fucking the mystery figure from Vegapunk spread that's been built up since the Reverie with that Shanks meeting the Gorosei fake tease or whatever. Um, this is like the existence of Shanks' evil twin that's been a popular idea for so long. Like we imagine a major, major villain for the end of the story, and then Gunko, who's already turning out to be like Gunko, Imu's fucking possessing Gunko right now. Like Gunko, fucking super important character for the story. The whole Brook backstory. So far, the most mysterious bast of all these celestial dragons. I don't even understand. Like this is mind blowing. Like this is important, like majorly important new information um that you would expect Oda has tight when he's revealing the characters. This is so you remember towards the beginning of Elbaf when like Oda had so many minor mistakes with the way he drew Straw Hats and such that it had fans theorizing that this isn't like it's all hallucination or something like that. You remember that? Um, that stuff is stuff that like it will fall under the area of like most people tended to just assume that Oda just made some drawing errors, right? That was the natural assumption. Most people just assumed that he made some drawing errors, and then there was a small faction of people that are like, this is a lot of drawing errors. Maybe it's something else. Maybe it's hallucination. This situation is so fucking different. This is just like I don't even know what like this is not a single one of us would have a way of guessing that this is just a mistake when we're first reading this in the chapter because these are brand new characters being introduced to us for the first time. We have very little understanding of like how the Celestial Dragon system works. It just creates such a rabbit hole. It creates such a rabbit hole of like us trying to bend over backwards to figure out like what's the deal with Gunko? Why is she not a Celestial Dragon? Does that explain all of these other quirks and oddities that she has? It's just fucking confusing. I don't know. Yeah, but it's a big reveal, and it definitely changes a lot about how we view Gunko. It means that so the Gunko past with Brook is very interesting because that means that Brook was like actually genuinely being friendly with a celestial dragon kid, right? Unless I'm mistaken. Manmare family, right? So unless she became a wife of somebody in the Manmare family or something like that, is that a possibility? Like maybe as a kid she was fine. She was part of some other kingdom or something, then dad gets killed or some shit. We got to relook at Brook's little conversation. Let's see Brook's conversation. It would be chapter 10, 11, 49, right? Let's see. Yeah, so Brook basically says... Okay, sorry. Father. This was very confusing. Father. So there's something tragic that happened. I imagine not to a celestial dragon. So I still believe... I don't know if she was originally a celestial dragon still. I still feel like she wasn't originally a celestial dragon. I wonder if she was married into the Manmare family. I don't know, but then did the rules make sense? Would she then be a saintess? I don't know. So I'm trying to read through people's thoughts. She could have been adopted. Yeah, maybe. But do celestial dragons, like, how does adoption work for them? Because they literally view it as blood, right? Like, that's a big deal for them. Like, we are not humans. Humans have a distinct type of blood that's different from us. So this is just very confusing. Yeah, would she become a saint then, says Stormy? I don't know. Yeah. Yeah, Mr. Human, thanks for the 2. Gunko got a celestial dragon name added in the volume. Yeah, it's just, it opens up it makes Gunko an even more confusing character than before, if possible. Meek, thanks for the 5. How do you feel about the Manmare stuff? I'm still processing, because this is very new information to me, too. Yeah, it's very confusing. I don't know. Because, okay, so originally I had the theory that Gunko's some sort of a clone. And my theory was that she's a clone of Ginny. She's clearly not a clone of Ginny. She goes all the way back to Brooke. Cool. Her eyes are still different. Oda hid her eyes, interestingly, in that little flashback snippet that we saw. Could she have been married to a family, cloned again? I don't know. She's a very, very interesting character now. Like, it made the character even more fascinating. Even more fascinating. Yeah. Meek, Mingo Mango, let me catch you in a second. I'm just catching Meek's follow-up. Super. Maybe she was a celestial dragon that became friends with a commoner, and her punishment was losing her memories or something to that effect. Fuck! Was that commoner Brooke? Did Brooke fuck her up or something? So the thing is that in the flashback, she's screaming for her father, so they do something to her father. And Brooke is like the guard for some royal kingdom's country. They do something to her father. Was her father a celestial dragon? That's the confusing thing. Or was she like the princess of some normal country, and then they did something to her father, the king, and then she's taken in by the celestial dragons, but then just the fact that she's also considered a saint is what's confusing to me. Mingo Mango, thanks for the 7. Morj-kun, the king fight was directly related to Zoro's identity as a swordsman and Wing to Luffy. Addressed stuff from Thriller Bark and post-war. Not really. It's just reaffirming things that we already know about the character. The Zoro fight, the Zoro versus King fight, I don't think is a bad fight. I don't think it's like bad to have a fight that reaffirms things that we know about the character already. But it does not establish anything new for him as a character outside of confirming that he has Conqueror's Haki. But I'm saying, like, in terms of his internal growth, Zoro pre and post King fight is exactly the same character who has the exact same understanding of himself, who he is, yada yada. Nothing changes post that. But that's not my bigger issue with the Zoro King fight, because I think it's a fine fight. I think it's perfectly fine. I think it's a good fight. I'm sorry. I don't want to underrate it. I think it's Zoro's second, but I think you could argue that or the Mr. I have a personal preference for the Mr. 1 fight. Maybe that's nostalgia. I don't know. But Zoro King, Zoro Mr. 1, both really great fights. My issue with Zoro and Wano has never been the King fight as much. It's more so, what is Oda, Oda didn't really do anything from his, Oda did a lot for him as a character in terms of giving him a shit ton of stuff and giving him a lot of motivations and everything, and then he just throws that all away and basically says that's all fake and irrelevant, essentially. And the King fight is totally detached from that. The King fight has nothing to do with, it'd be kind of like imagine you're watching, it's like a movie where whatever the climax of the final battle is, it's probably already scripted or something, but then, it's like the first half and the second half of the movie are written by two different people or two different mentalities. So it's like, okay, first half, we're going to set this character up with what's his motivations, what's his story, what's going on with him, what's he dealing with, all this stuff. And then the second half, it's it has nothing to do with the first half at all. The second half is its own total other thing, which is just okay, he's going to fight this guy and the fight's going to be about this stuff. Is it connected to the first half of the movie at all? No. It's just two separate movies. It's the movies were written by two separate people, basically. The first half is concocted by somebody that, in theory, would lead to a conclusion in the second half. And the second half was written by somebody that was just you know what? First half doesn't even matter. Irrelevant. That's my bigger issue with Zoro and Wano. Where are we at? Keenan, thanks for being a Yonko tier member for 33 months, man. Always good to talk to you, man. Thanks for coming through. Doffy came back with his dad's head, and they still didn't take him back. I doubt they're adopting any mortal unless they're reformed like Meowscord. Yeah, that's the thing. Getting into the Celestial Dragons is such a fucking... It's practically impossible. You can do so many things, but if they deem you a mortal, you can't just join again, right? Unless maybe they were specifically fuck Doflamingo in particular. But yeah, that's the confusing, because that means that Gunko was legitimately a celestial dragon, and then for some reason her father did something so bad that they I don't know, killed or tortured her father. Maybe her father was a fucking good person. Maybe he was a good celestial dragon or some shit. And and then maybe they did some brainwashing or some shit to Gunko, and that leads to her being the way she is today. I don't know. Jolly D. Joestar with a good point. I wanted Zoro to surpass King's durability and not wait for the flames to go off. So I think we still got to wait and see the exact details of this. Because, so the big thing is, it's implied that Zoro doesn't have immediate control over Advanced Conqueror's Haki. So that's why he didn't cut the Seraphim at Egghead. That's my headcanon for it now. I don't think Zoro was using Advanced Conqueror's Haki against Lucci until Sanji pissed him off. I think the recent comments from Guban basically confirmed that Zoro, I don't think, taps into Conqueror's Haki techniques on a whim. Like, I think he just doesn't have, he has such a little understanding of it that it's just something that happens. Okay, so to me, that excuses him not cutting the Seraphim at Egghead. Now, in terms of Onigashima, it seemed as though Zoro could cut King with the flames on, because Zoro even had that comment to King, like, why are you dodging? Are you afraid that I can cut you now? Even though King had the flame on. And that's true. King wouldn't have a reason to dodge unless now he's worried legitimately. Like, King literally wasn't dodging Zoro's moves for a while before, just to fuck with him, right? But the fact that King was starting to actually have to try and block and evade and everything suggests to me that we never got to see the actual test, like, can Zoro cut him with his flame on? But that's kind of I guess what we got, in a sense, confirmation of. I think it would have been dramatic to see it happen, kind of like with Mr. One. It was dramatic to see Mr. One actually get cut. For some reason, Oda didn't want to include that at the very end, but I think it's practically confirmed that Zoro could do it, you know. Bane, thanks to the 2. Morj, I got a lot of work but can't focus. Any tips? Honestly, you and me both, man. I've actually, I do have tips because I do know over the years what works for me, but it's still far from perfect. I realized recently that I do most likely have ADHD. So I'm probably going to start taking ADHD medication. I need to do a telemed visit with some psychiatrist that I'm trying to schedule in the next 2 weeks. Yeah, so most likely going to be doing that. And yeah, honestly, if you, I don't know if you have ADHD or not, but like, it is very, very, like, from the more I've read about it, the more I just feel like this feels very, very accurate to me. I guess instead of talking about the issues or whatever that come with it, I don't think I have like crazy ADHD like some people do. But I do have, what do you call? I do have those sharp tendencies when it comes to getting things done. But at the same time, I'm usually able to force myself to get everything I need to get done. It's just that I procrastinate till like it's late at night, and then I'm working like really late at night or whatever to get everything done. That's my bigger thing, right? So like when I was younger, things would just slip through the cracks and just not be done whatsoever. And I know the jokes are going to come about the Wano video. I'll address that in a second and how that pertains to this. But yeah, when I was younger, that would be like a huge thing, very scattered with all sorts of things, right? As I got older, I just, you have to start to adapt. And so I became much better at actually getting everything I need to get done. It was just easy for me to procrastinate. So if it's like, okay, my schedule for the day is going to be like, I work from like 9 to 6 or something, then eventually instead it'll turn into like, okay, I started the day maybe at 3, and then I'm working till like 11 or 12 or something. That's usually how it goes with me, which is not the best. Also, meetings don't help. So like we do regular meetings with myself, my editor, our assistant, artist, stuff like that. But meetings also bore the shit out of me. Anyway, in terms of the Wano video, that's one of the things that basically like the Wano video, I make progress on that if I do everything else in the day really, really good. Does that make sense? Because like if the Wano video, let's say like I have like X number of hours of work to do in a day, and I procrastinate. So then I'm working, like I said, like let's say 3 to 12 or something. By the time it's late night, I don't want to push myself for like, then I'm like, too tired, can't focus on the big Wano video. Okay, we'll do that another time, basically. So that's the biggest thing usually. Things that can be pushed, that's part of the problem with the Wano video. Things that can be pushed do get pushed, but then things that are important, I always do. Like, you notice that you never ever see me miss like a Tuesday video release. If I miss a Tuesday video release, or like a chapter review or something, it's because some major circumstance happened that like suddenly we had to scrap that video or something and then redo it. Okay, but in general, the things that are on a tight schedule for the channel, same with sponsors, same with podcasts generally, like all those things that are on tight schedules, I will always get those done. It might just be late at night that I'm finishing everything, but those will always get done. Things that have more leeway, like a long-term project like the Wano video, that is in itself very large, obviously, and so like you got to really sit down and sink your teeth into and spend like a long period of time doing it to remember everything that I wrote previously. Like I got to reread all the shit that I wrote previously to get back into writing and making progress on it again. So that often just feels like such a giant pain in the ass that it gets shifted. So I don't know if that's the problem that you're dealing with, but here are simple things, okay? Simple things that have made me become generally more productive over time, even if I haven't done that big one, let's say the Wano analysis. In general, you notice I don't miss things that the channel generally works like clockwork for pretty much everything else. The things that work for me are basically, one, you need to know what your best working conditions are and the things that tend to distract you. So if you set things up beforehand, for yourself to be productive, you are more likely to be productive. So for example, the night before, try and close as many tabs out on your computer as you can so that when you come, you sit down at your desk or whatever, and open up. I like to open up a script document beforehand, okay? So that when I'm coming to sit down on my desk, if the first thing I'm doing is like I'm just opening up the computer and the script is already up, then it's likely that I'm going to be, like, I'm less likely to go mentally browsing, going to YouTube, going to Twitter, Reddit, whatever the fuck, because you've removed obstacles to getting started. You've set everything out for yourself, like how you would like to get started beforehand, so you're likely to just smoothly go into it. The danger comes from once you start getting distracted doing something else, right? Then there might not be a hard thing in your head telling you when to stop, and eventually you realize that you just didn't stop and didn't get focused, right? So remove obstacles to getting started, because that activation energy of like actually starting by doing the first thing, that's the hardest part. If you're somebody who has ADHD, usually it helps to do the smallest things first and then save the biggest things for last, because then you hit like anything you've got a sort of checklist for. It allows you to build momentum, because a long list can feel very overwhelming. But if you start by doing the things that'll take 1 minute, 2 minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, then you find yourself checking off more things, and then you feel very productive and you feel like you've got momentum going, versus like starting with the thing that'll take 5 hours and then like you're at the end of it and it's like, oh my God, I still got so many other things to do. It can feel overwhelming. And then try and create like hard rules for yourself, like set alarms, set timers and things like that. Like I need to be like, if I'm taking a break, the break can only be this long, stuff like that. Those are the smallest ways that can help. Again, I know that the fact that I haven't finished the Wano analysis doesn't make me seem like the best person to preach about productivity and stuff, but I would say that like for me, somebody who probably has had procrastination tendencies for things like in general for so long, I am generally proud of the fact that like the channel always works on a very tight schedule that I am able to stick to. It's just the bigger thing that I still haven't gotten to, but like I personally feel like it's better to hear, if you're somebody who struggles with focus and things like that, it is better to hear advice from somebody who also has the same struggles and doesn't have it like perfect but has made progress, rather than somebody who doesn't have those problems at all, because then there's just a disconnect in terms of what you're experiencing versus that not being a problem that other person has in the first place. Does that make sense? Like my dad, for example, zero focus or procrastination issues. If there's stuff to be done, he will just get it done, and it's never like a thing for him, basically. My mom, on the other hand, she's much more similar to me, so she had to work on those things over time. So generally, it's more useful to hear from, because I've heard that people who don't have ADHD, it's more useful for them to do big tasks first and then work their way down to smaller tasks, versus people who do have ADHD or focus or attention problems. It's best to start with the small things first and then work your way to the big things. So it's better, listen from me. It's better to listen from somebody who also who has similar things, but has been able to work through a lot of that over time to some degree. I'd still like to get on medication to reach, I guess, max productivity, and maybe that would cause me to just knock out the Wano analysis in a single Sunday or something like that. But we won't know till I start doing that. What was the other thing I was gonna say? Yeah, that's basically it. All right. Jordan Taylor, thanks for being a Yonko tier member for 33 months, man. My employee just got into One Piece and won't stop telling me that Shanks and Dragon are going to team up to beat Emu, just like Roger and Garp teaming up. What do you mean just got into One Piece? It sounds like they're a fucking 1,000 episodes in. They've been at if you just got into One Piece, then they've watched 1,000 episodes of One Piece at that point, right? Or read 1,100 chapters of One Piece, right? Like, they didn't just get into One Piece. They've been, I guess, just caught up to One Piece, I guess is fair to say. But that's the funny thing. You can't just become a One Piece fan. It's always going to be like a long-term process. Nobody just becomes a One Piece fan like that. Like, it doesn't happen, because it's not like Jujutsu Kaisen, where you might binge the whole thing over a couple weeks or something, or like Demon Slayer. To become a full-fledged like get into One Piece, unless you have infinite free time, it's like a half-year long process or something, right? At minimum. So, give this guy some props. He's not totally new. He's been following One Piece for some time at this point, right? Shanks and Dragon are going to beat Emu just like Roger and Garp teaming up. That's a very random parallel to say. That would be like me saying, I don't know. There's not different from me saying Shanks and Mihawk are going to team up to beat Emu like Roger and Garp did. Like, where's the character connections here? I guess Shanks is similar to Roger. Dragon is... I see what you're saying. Never mind. I'm being stupid. Dragon being Garp's son. Shanks essentially being Roger's son. Shanks is essentially Roger's son. I don't actually really think of him like that, but he's essentially Roger's son. Kind of makes him and Ace like brothers, now that I think about it, which would make Shanks and Luffy like brothers, except Shanks is kind of like Luffy's father figure. So like, that's weird. Roger is like Shanks' adoptive father, and Ace is Roger's biological son, right? So Shanks and Ace is like an adopted son, biological son brotherhood, if I think about it like that. But then Shanks and Luffy is like, Luffy views Shanks as a father figure, and Luffy views Ace as his brother, basically. So Shanks is both Ace's brother and Luffy's father figure, and this weird brother-father triangle, brother-father-brother triangle, with Luffy being Ace's brother. It's weird. Anyway, I get that. I get where your friend's coming from now, but it just seems too random to me. Yeah, you can be a fan already being in Marine Forwards, says Fidu. I mean, honestly, you could be a fan being in like any slot, like early, like if you're in Marine Forward, how many hundreds of episodes have you watched? Like 300, 400 at that point? Like, you've probably watched, to get to Marine Forward in One Piece, you'd have to have seen more. You'd have to be more than caught up, like, with Demon Slayer, Jujutsu Kaisen, all of these other long-running series, Like, you've seen so much of the story at that... Like, you've been with this fictional work for so long at that point, Grizzly Adams, thanks for the 5. Adderall Morj is going to give us the Wano video, a movie Morj video, and a manga Morj video all in 1 week. That's the thing. I stayed away from it. First, I was like, okay, so for the longest time, I was like, I don't need it. Because in my mind, just the idea of like going on medication for something like that, it just feels weird to me. And even though it's very normal and commonplace now for lots of people to be on medications for lots of whatever mental health things or whatever. For me, it just felt weird to think about. I was like, no, I'm not like that. Like, I'm not somebody that needs mental medication for something. It just felt like a barrier to me. I was like, I don't want to be somebody that's having to do that to operate in a certain way. And I also felt like, because for years my I've been able to do things fine. Like I've never felt like any procrastination or focus issue I have hasn't been something that I ultimately still am able to overcome, whatever, basically. Like that's part of the problem. Like, if my life was in total shambles, then maybe I'd be like, I fucking need medication. But if you're able to basically do everything well, for the most part, right? Nobody has it all together, but if you're able to basically like live a solid life and everything like that, then even though I'd get very frustrated with myself if I don't get certain things done, it was always something I'm like, well, this is just like, if I just try harder, I know I can do this and that and everything. So it never reached a point where I was like, oh, I absolutely need this stuff, right? But then I began to, like, now more recently I began to think about, like, okay, but just because things are good enough, am I reaching my peak potential? No, probably not. And so the idea of, like, well, what if I just, like, did the thing that potentially lets me reach my peak potential, as a person? That's probably more important, right? Than just not doing this on principle. And so that shifted my mentality, like, okay, let me try it and then see. And maybe it's not actually that helpful for me. Who knows? It might be not a big deal or a big game changer. I'm worried that it might affect other aspects of life. Like, does it affect my mood? Does it affect personality? Does it affect things like that? So that's what I'm a little bit worried about. But that made me go back and forth a little bit as well. But now I'm just like, no, let me just do it. And then if I don't like it, I'll stop. Okay. Retro Records. Thanks for being Yonko tier member for 33 months. Hey, Morj, buzz the hair and grow back beard. Also, haven't watched King of Lightning's video, but I bet he didn't like Wano because Zoro got conquerors. Lol. I don't know about that. Maybe. We don't know. We don't know the reasons yet. We'll let's get the streamlights up to 100 and then we can start watching. I'm getting a haircut this Wednesday, and I'm not just saying that this time. I've scheduled a full ass, like, it's like a hairstylist. Like, it's a pretty high end one, so that I can get a good good concept for a hairstyle and then kind of stick with that. So it's a little bit, it's gonna be like $100 haircut or some shit, but it's just so that I want a professional to basically figure out what is a hairstyle I should have and then stick with and then get that haircut. And then, so I'll eat the cost for that. And then hopefully after that, once I know what hairstyle I kind of want to stick with, then I can just have simpler haircuts. Does that make sense? Because I don't need a craziest haircut. I think I'll just want trims after that. Linus says, thought you're growing out. I've given up on growing it out. It's just not, at this point, it's not even about the aesthetics. It's long hair legitimately gets in the way of every fucking thing. Like, I can't fucking, like, if I'm eating a burger, right, and then my hair's like falling down, okay, so my hair's now in my eyes, right, and I want to push my hair back, but like my hands are greasy, so I gotta, like, you gotta do a lot. It's just a pain in the ass. So, like, I gotta move my head back just to make my hair go back. Like, it's just, that might sound like the most simple example and like most not a big deal example, but I promise it's like a million different things. It's a million small things that it's just a pain in the ass. If I go running, it gets in the way. Boxing, so I've started doing boxing. I don't think I even mentioned that, but now I've been going to boxing about like once a week for the past several weeks. Gets in the way for that. I could do ponytail or whatever, but like it's just I could also just cut the hair, right? It's a pain in the ass. All right. Yeah, it's just annoying. And like you have to, for it to look good, there's like, after you shower, shampoo, conditioner, you always have to put in like, because mine's curly right? So I've got to put in like curl cream or something. My girlfriend gets me to put in this like curl cream oil, but then I usually don't feel like doing that myself. So it's only like if we're going out somewhere or something that she's like, "We're gonna put in your curl cream oil," and then I put in the curl cream oil, and it does usually look better, but I don't want to have to do that every fucking time. Uh, like I just don't. I want it to be simple. I want to be simple. Grizzly Adams, thanks for the 10. It's definitely most important to find out what works for you with these things. Find your comfort zone. Also, what if the Grand Fleet commanders are reversied? So we could get Zoro versus Hakuba or Sanji versus Sai. Zoro versus Hakuba, yeah, I definitely agree. Like, everybody has different productivity needs or different things holding them back. I usually think it's best to hear from somebody who's struggled with the same things you have to hear how they worked around it. Because some people just straight up don't have the same issues, so they don't, like, they can't really connect or understand, like, well, why can't you just do this? Why can't you just do that or whatever? What if the Grand Fleet commanders are reversed? So we get Zoro versus Hakuba or Sanji versus Sai. I think those would be very disappointing matchups for Zoro and Sanji respectively. Because, like, again, Robin destroyed Hakuba, 0 difficulty, back in Dressrosa. And Zoro's trying to, like, Hakuba is not that strong. Zoro's trying to fight Mihawk, like, next arc or something, right? So it's like, okay, I fought demonized Cavendish before this, and now I'm going to Mihawk. Just don't think it's the best progression of strength. With Sanji versus Sai, yeah, same thing. Like, I just think they should be so beyond those characters. It just would be a joke. Like, remember, Rob Lucci took out Sai immediately at the Reverie. You know, like, not knocked him out, but it was clearly implied that Lucci would destroy Sai, right? Yeah, I just think that I personally feel like with the Grand Fleet, because they're a cool addition to the Straw Hats brand in general. From here on, what I would like to see is, like, actually see them really come in use and come in clutch for the Straw Hats in a way. I think it would be terrible if, like, they sign up for the Straw Hats and then the first thing that happens after they, like, joined under Luffy's umbrella after Chapter 800 and the Father and Sons Cups is, like, they fucking fight, like, they become an obstacle for the Straw Hats. I don't think that should be the case. I think it'd be more dramatic if, I think it'd be cooler, just in general, if, yeah, like, the next time we see them is them really coming in clutch in a way. Tom with some advice. Morj, ask the psychiatrist about it being instant release and not extended release if you don't want it to affect too much. Instant release will give you the focus you need for your work session. Oh, thank you. That's really interesting. Yeah. Okay, let me make a note. Instant release versus extended release. Thank you, Tom. That's interesting. Yeah, because I don't want it to be like a general thing. Because in general life, I don't really need, how to explain, like, I was never like a super hyper active person growing up in general. Like, I'm really not, it really just comes down to, when it comes down to having to sit to do productivity and focused work on things that I don't want to do, that's where it becomes an issue. If you met me in just real life or conversation or anything like that, you would never think that I have ADHD. It really just comes down to this sort of stuff. So I don't need it in general. I just need it to up my productivity, to get me to do my things that I need, to get me to do things that I need to do in a timely fashion. That's the biggest thing. Because, again, like, the biggest issue I have right now is I do get everything done. It's just after a lot of distractions. And then so I'm killing myself working way later into the night than I need to, which is not fun. All right. Yeah. Tyler, thanks for the 5. A simple solution for your hair routine. Aloe vera 1 cup and 3-4. See, this is already not. I just don't want to do anything. I don't want to do any of that. I just want shampoo, conditioner, done. Back in the day, I used to use a 2-in-1. Shampoo and conditioner, same thing, right? Then at a certain point, I started doing shampoo separate, conditioner separate. when I started trying to take care of my hair a little bit more. And yeah, and now I'm at now with my long ass hair, I'm like, shit, am I gonna have to really do shampoo, conditioner, a cup of aloe vera, and 3/4 water in a spray bottle, shake them, spray, lasts all day and can be used daily. Actually, that's interesting. That sounds pretty simple. I just don't want to do it. I think I just realized I just don't want to do it. I also think that, like, here's the thing. I don't know if I will end up looking better with long hair than with short hair. That's the biggest thing. Like, at the end of the day, do I want to put in a ton of effort to look maybe as good as I do with short hair? Right? Like, doesn't that defeat? You would only put in the effort if it's definitely making you look better than you did with short hair, right? Which I just don't know. I don't know if that's the case. I don't know. And then the other part is like general life inconveniences. Like, again, like it just longer hair just gets in your way a lot. It just does. Like, for whatever reason, like you'll be doing stuff and then the hair will just be in front of your face. It just happens. Okay. All right, everybody. TomTom says Morj are using shampoo every day. If so, do not do that. It is not good for your hair. Use shampoo like every third day. Yeah, I'm not shampooing every day. I'm not shampooing every day. I do know that. I've tried to avoid that more since I've learned that that's not good for long hair. But yes, even still. Chief says it's easier to try long and then revert to short than the other way around. I 100% agree. The problem is that I think we've done it. I think this was the try. I think I tried it. I think I realized it's not for me. And now we move on from here. This was the attempt. I think I put in a solid amount of time into this. And I've been talking about, like, okay, maybe it's time to cut it. Maybe it's time to cut it for a while. And yeah, I think we hit a point. Honestly, though, so Wednesday I'm going to, like, again, like a relatively higher end hairstylist, specifically for the reason that, like, hopefully they can guide me in a good direction. And so maybe there they tell me that no, I can grow my hair long in a way that works, and it's not gonna be that complicated if I just do certain things. So maybe Friday's stream I come back with just a trim or something like that. I don't know. All right, Fade W says, when are you watching the King of Lightning video, Morj? Now. Let me watch it now. Hold on. First, I gotta give myself a little reminder. How did I react to Jay's video? Morj J reaction. Did I get copyright struck for that? How did I watch? Did I do my? No, I full on had the screen up. Hold on, full on had the screen up. Haters. Let me mute my desktop audio. Oh my god, my hair's so much shorter in this reaction. Oh my god, my hair looks ridiculous in this. It looks really bad in this. Hold on, let me share this. This is actually abysmal. Here, look at this. At least my hair's not as bad as this was. Look at this. What is going on here? I think my hair right now is better than this, right? Fuck. Maybe I shouldn't cut my hair. Right? My hair. Tell me I'm wrong. I think my hair right now is better than this. Orshaliath, thanks for the 2. Here's the ransom. Just give my dog back. No. This is mine from here on. TomTom says, I hope Jay reacts to Morj reacting to King of Lightning. Oh, I got to message Jay back. We were trying to find a time to just catch up in general. Yeah. Okay. Did I have audio on for this? Yeah. Okay. So for this I had my desktop. I think I've been muted for you guys right now, but I had my desktop audio on and everything. So yeah, I can do a full on like actual reaction for this. Okay. Let me pull up King of Lightning's thing. Let's see. King of Lightning Wano. One second. Okay. All right, everybody ready? Is Jay in my chat right now? Is Jay in chat right now? There's no way. Jay's not. I don't see Jay in chat. Someone tell me if Jay's in chat. I don't think so. Jay was in your chat? When? Is Jay still here? What the fuck? He was earlier? Oh, god damn it, I missed. Fuck. Let me send him a message right now. He's gonna think I'm ignoring him. Uh, uh, yeah. All right. Okay. Where we at? Julian Criswell, thanks for the 5. Blackbeard is Buccaneer and Lunarian. Would explain his hate towards the world government. He got the double oppression tragic backstory. I don't think Blackbeard's a Lunarian. He doesn't have any of the Lunarian traits, you know? I think he just needs one. Being a Buccaneer works. Ender Anami says Adderall Morj wouldn't have missed Jay in chat. Now I feel very bad because we're trying to find a time to. I don't think I've talked to Jay in a long ass time. We ran into each other it's complicated because I went to Houston for DreamCon, but I was on a real tight time crunch. So I only saw Jay for like literally a minute, and then I had to leave. So now I feel bad I feel bad because we're trying to find a time to catch up, and now he's gonna think I'm ignoring him because I also didn't see him in chat. Isis1155, thanks for the 10. This guy made a fire Luffy versus Blackbeard animation under 2 minutes, quick. I think you'd appreciate creativity worth the love. Impact frames fire. I already know the video you're talking about. I've already reacted to that. And I thought it was phenomenal. I love the part where Luffy grabs the black bars or something like that on the top and bottom of the screen and starts using those. Or he does something interactive with those. I assume it's that video. Let me pull this up. But I've already reacted to this. I've already seen this one. Yeah, I've seen this one. Yeah, it's really cool. I've already seen it. Does anybody remember off the top which stream I reacted to it? So that we can point Isis over to that. It was a recent stream. I think it was in the last few weeks, I want to say. It was a recent stream. All right, everybody. All right. We're going to be reacting to Jay, or not Jay's, sorry, King of Lightning's. Yeah, I'll turn on desktop audio. I don't fear any monetization claim from this. All right, everybody. All right. You guys ready? Oh, wait, and I hear Werb has a video as well. I think, I don't know. Man, there's so many others. All right, let's just get into it. I don't want to react to every single Wano thing. Let's get into Kings. All right.
Wano Country is a very controversial arc. It might be one of the most, if not the most, in the entire story of One Piece.
I like listening to things at 1.25 speed, but I forget if I listen to Jay's on 1.25 or not. But this is a short enough video that, you know what, we'll just listen to the whole thing.
Let's say, focus most, if not the most, in the entire.
Everybody good? Everybody happy? You guys can read and everything? You see things? Oh, camera froze? God damn it. Why does this shit happen, man? Hold on. Fixing it. All right. The fuck? Oh, shit. Hold on. God damn it. God damn it. Let me try again. Let me try again. Let me try again. Add a new thing. Add a new thing. Okay, close. Should be working now. There should be a thing. Fuck. I'm worried I'm gonna have to start stream again. Because now it is not popping up. Okay. Give me a second, y'all. Give me a second. Usually this does fix it, but it's being a pain in the ass right now. Okay. Yeah, I'm very worried I have to restart stream. This has become a recurring issue. Hold on, hold on. Okay, so this is the one that doesn't work. This is the one that doesn't work. Fuck. Normally it's just able to reset itself after a little bit. Give me a second, guys. Yeah, worst case, we might have to restart this thing. Oh, there we go. There we go. There we go. All right. Thank God. All right. All right. All right. All right. All right. Let me fuck with this real quick. Hold on. Hold on. Hold on. Let's fix this shit. There we go. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. All right. Fuck. Did I get too cocky? What have I done? What have I done? Okay, okay. Here we go. Okay, I might have gotten too ambitious there, but it all worked out. All worked out in the end. All worked out. All right. All right. All right. Good stuff. Good stuff. Good stuff. Now let's get back to this thing, which is still incorrect. Here we go. But I know how to fix it now. I know how to fix it. All right. Always need some amount of tech issues involved, and there we go. Okay. All right. Everybody good? We all good? All right. Everything is in working order. Let's get the stream lights up to 200 real quick. In the meantime, Side Sprints, thank you for being a Yonko tier member for 26 months. Always here for Wano slander. Hey, we don't know if it's slander. Well, it says Wano Country arc sucks. The core reason why Oda underperformed. All right. All right, everybody, ready? Let's watch. Play at a 1.25 speed. That's how I would normally watch. I normally watch videos at 1.25 speed. Any sort of video essay, 1.25. Actually, it depends on the pace of the person speaking. Because, like, depending on the video essay, I'll watch it at 2x speed. And then if they're a kind of fast talker, then I might watch it at 1.25. It's just whatever the highest level that I can still understand everything they're saying, basically. The highest speed that I can still understand. But I can watch this at normal speed. Let's see.
Story of One Piece. Either I see on, let's say, Folks' top 5, or not even their top 10, or even top 15 in terms of the overall ranking of their.
Yeah, I think Wano is generally pretty. It's generally pretty. I guess polarizing is the right word. Obviously there are plenty of people that like Wano quite a bit and have it as like one of their favorite arcs. That's common. But then I think there's fewer people that have it like somewhere in their. I think either you have it like as one of your top 4 or 5 favorites. I think that's like either you're on that end or you don't have it in like among your favorites in general. Does that make sense? Like either it's or not. That's a poor example. Or maybe it's outside your top 10, right? I think there's fewer people. So like if I were to take like an arc like I don't know, Enies Lobby, right? Maybe not everybody has it as their favorite, but it's not uncommon for Enies Lobby to like it's top or like Saboti, right? Like you might have it top 5 or you might have it 6, 7 or something like that, but it's still going to be or Impel Down. It's still going to be probably in there somewhere. But I think with Wano, it is more common, like, either you really loved the arc or you dislike the arc. I think also a lot of people who really, really loved Wano experienced it for the first time in the anime, where the anime did elevate a lot of the scenes a lot. And by that point, once you reach... I think also, like, the pacing is terrible, obviously, in the anime, but anybody who's been watching the One Piece anime through, you know... Fishman Island, Punk Hazard, Dressrosa, Whole Cake. At that point, you're already used to the pacing to some degree. So the big Wano bump in animation, production quality, and general scene direction, and what they try and do more with the characters, basically hard overrides any sort of pacing feelings that you've been feeling, because the pacing's already become standardized for you. So I think a lot of people who really like Wano come from anime more than... I think a lot of people who catch up through Wano through the anime tend to have a more favorable opinion of it. But then that's not to say there weren't plenty of people in the manga who also really liked Wano when it first came out in the manga and had it as like one of their few favorites. But then on the other end of the spectrum, you have a lot of people who really dislike it. You guys obviously know where I land.
Arcs, and some folks would just say that Wano Country is either the best arc or just plain sucks. And the reason why
I don't think there's a lot of people... Maybe this is just me being a hater or something, but this is genuine. Like, I don't think there's a lot of people who say that Wano's the best arc in One Piece. Like, I see people who say they really like it, but I think it's generally pretty rare that I see somebody say it's, like, their favorite arc in One Piece. You know what I mean? Even when people, like, you know, like, online or whatever, people tend to, like, compare manga. So, like, when people compare, like, the best One Piece, like, what's the best, like, what's the... Like, you're comparing, like, the Chimera Ant arc versus, like, you know, the Shibuya Incident arc, like, versus whatever the fuck. Like, when you see people comparing the best arcs of a given series, I don't think I've ever seen people put forward, like, Wano as One Piece's best arc. Like, you tend to see something like... Marineford is kind of the standard go-to. New fans, maybe? Werb says, I think I see a lot of people who put it top 3. Werb, I'm adding you as mod. A lot of people who added as top. A lot of people who put it as top 3. Yeah, I think I see that more common. I think it's rare that I see somebody say that it's just their straight up favorite or best arc in One Piece. But when I have seen that, it's been through anime fans, generally speaking. A being, welcome to the Yonko. Please feel free to go check out all the Morj casts, the podcast that comes out every week as a companion piece to every Tuesday's video. So there'll be a Morj cast that comes out with tomorrow's Tuesday video, of course. All right, let's get into it.
It's on my mind again. It's because I saw a video recently by Werb, and
Werb, maybe we'll be watching your video after this. We might just watch that after this.
Werb on YouTube
I didn't know
did
you
a
had
video titled "Why Wano Didn't Have Steaks," not ribeyes or T-bones or New York strips, not things you stab vampires with, but the actual consequences, the win or loss stakes that normally you would see in various arcs, and how Wano Country, it has that, but it doesn't have it to the same degree as other arcs in his opinion. And normally I don't have time to watch other folks' videos like that, but this kind of did catch my eye, and I did sit down and watch it, and I thought it was a pretty good video. Why he believes that Alabasta did things right, but Wano Country which did not do things as good. There are many major points of failure in the arc in terms of actual story written failures. So talk about Luffy losing to Kaido, the Scabbard versus Kaido, Luffy loses to Kaido again, rooftop, and then the final time when, before it goes into Gear 5, he kind of dies. So there are major points.
I imagine I know where this is going, because this is all stuff that's it's very similar to what's going to be in my video. So I imagine now I almost don't want to watch, because like now it's going to be getting into points that I'm just going to be saying basically myself a bunch. So I don't want to get too skewed by what is already being said. But
it's a failure in the entire Wano Country arc. In his opinion, the first one being the best one, but even still, they don't compare to what, let's say, we get in Alabasta. And his reasoning for it is actually pretty interesting too, so you can see the video yourself. But there are essentially things like the consequences of a certain situation in, let's say, Dressrosa would lead to the birdcage changing all of Dressrosa in the process. Or let's say Luffy feeling to be crocodile for the first time leads to an eventual war where thousands of folks are losing their lives. Things of that sort. So whether or not, let's say, you agree or disagree with the idea that the stakes of Wano Country were not as intense or well thought.
Yeah, that's a really, really good point. Like, it has to actually be there needs to be a consequence to losing, right? The setback there needs to be a setback in a sense, right? It can't just be prolonging the events of the arc.
Out as previous arcs, I think it's up to you. It's very subjective, like these things normally are. Like you could argue, for example, that Kaido just being able to execute his plan in any capacity, dropping Onigashima onto the city, and then turning Wano Country into an entire slave factory via the new Onigashima project, that threat in of itself was enough for the stakes. But in watching that video that Werb did, it got me thinking about the reasons why I think that Wano Country is not in the top end of One Piece arcs. I did a stream about 2 years ago, the top 15 best arcs of One Piece, and Wano Country at that point in time was not in my top 10. And I would say things have gotten even worse for Wano Country because Elbaf, I think, is on pace to be better than Wano Country, and I would absolutely say that Agate Island is better than Wano Country. Furthermore, I would say that the anime version is a superior product than the manga version.
Yeah, because I have been watching more of the Wano anime in general. Like, there's just an itch. I think I've been talking about this on off through streams recently, but I've just had an itch, random, you get One Piece itches, every once in a while. Like, I've been watching more of the scenes the way the anime does it. It's still not watchable for me, like, episode to like, I wouldn't be able to watch the full Wano Country arc or even, like, extended, like, 10 episodes, 5 episodes in a row because the pacing is so bad. But they do just go really hard in terms of trying to find ways to... like the recent example I gave was like the way they tried to introduce the Toby Roppo and like Queen announcing all of the people who are on the Beast Pirate side, the various characters on the Beast Pirate side before the banquet began. Like the way that he goes about that is very, or the anime goes about, mixing shit up. The way the anime goes about that is, it makes it more stylish, more fun, entertaining. It makes it a cool scene. And obviously like scenes like Luffy arriving at the rooftop in the anime is like 5 million times better in the anime than it was in the manga. The manga, I almost thought it was like, I'm not going to say nothing. It was a fine chapter in the manga, I guess. But even Yamato is a character. They gave her more depth and stuff in the anime. Like, the anime went overtime to really like improve the viewing experience of it. But I view it through the manga lens, so I don't really judge it by the anime.
There are issues, like for example, when we're brought up how Luffy lost the third time round in chapters 10:13 and 10:14, when Luffy is sent packing off the island Onigashima, we don't see what happens in the manga version, and that is actually one of the major points of contention that Word has with the stakes of the arc. But in
the anime?
In the anime version, episode 1033, not only is it a vastly superior version where they actually show you the fight, but it winds up being one of the best parts in the entirety.
Yeah, that was just dumb. Because, like, literally the most... like, it's good. So, I talk about this also in my my script as well, but, like, it's... the most powerful part of like a loss, that like when the protagonist faces a loss to the antagonist, is the protagonist experiencing the loss. That's when it's the strongest. Like that's when you're getting the most dramatic juice out of the moment. The protagonist experiencing the loss. Like the crocodile example, if you want to look at, like that's the first time when Luffy's losing a crocodile in the desert. That's the first time that we're seeing Luffy like actually become really shaken, really desperate. He's literally begging Crocodile to stop. He's like, don't go after the old man in Yuba. Like, what are you doing? Why are you doing this? Stop this. Stop this. Like, there's nothing he can do. He's basically like resorting to like just yelling at Crocodile because he can't do anything. Like, it's powerful seeing Luffy become that helpless in that situation. This skips this scene, like just having Luffy shown off screen defeated. It skips the most important part of the fight, which is Luffy actually having to face the fact that he thought he could beat Kaido 1v1. He was confident in that, but turns out he can't, right? That's the most powerful part about the fight. That's what's most interesting for Luffy to have to experience as a character. Oda skips that. He just skips that part, which is just baffling. And it's good for shock value for the reader, but it's terrible for character writing for the story, especially because Luffy after that, basically it's as though nothing actually happened for him other than he got physically relocated to another location. So now he has to deal with the inconvenience of getting back.
Of Wano country, when you find out that for half that fight, Kaido was so immersed into the fight, he was hallucinating fighting Luffy, which gives us a level of depth to the character of Kaido that the manga version has not delivered. I digress. Wano country still has issues nonetheless, whether it be anime or manga. And while I think it's fair that some folks say it does suck, and knowing me how I ramble so much, I'm going to try and just keep things very concise and orderly. And so I'll break it down to three major parts. Right into it, part number one. Wano country has some of the best moments in the entirety of One Piece.
Definitely agree with that. And that's where I think Wano can be high in a lot of people's spots, because even I, like, who I don't like Wano in general, I would 100% agree that, like, if I'm just going back to, like, look at moment, it's part of the reason that I've gone back in the anime to watch Wano moments, because I can really dislike the story overall, but the highlights are better than... There might be more Wano, more like highlight, like great One Piece moments in Wano than there are in the entirety of post time skip prior to it. I don't know. That's actually really not true. I would say more than I think if you exclude in between arc stuff, I think there was a period of time that One Piece, a lot of its best shit was happening in between arcs, like Kaido's introduction, shit like that, like the Reverie. I think Wano has more highlight moments than Whole Cake, Dressrosa, Punk Hazard, Fishman Island. Like if you chop off the tail ends of those arcs, where like, oh, everyone reacting like Luffy's new bounty and stuff like that, or Kaido's introduction, or the Reverie. If you chop off like the in between, like you just look at the story, like what happens within the story of each arc, I think Wano has more highlights than the majority of those are than pretty much all those arcs combined, arguably. Like, I think Act 2 is the only place where I think Act 2 has almost no good highlight moments in Wano. But yeah, like, Act 1, I think Kaido arriving in dragon form, Kaido defeating Luffy. Like, there's a lot of moments that I could imagine myself, if I was back into watching One Piece reactions, I'd be watching the reactions of a lot of shit from the Wano storyline specifically. Like, I'd want to see people react to Kaido's dragon form. I'd want to see people react to Kaido beating Luffy in Act 1. Obviously, Gear 5th. Several of the fights, like Zoro King, Sanji Queen, Robin, Demonio Fleur, Kaido and Big Mom maybe teaming up or something. Roger laughed. Roger Whitebeard. Like, highlights Wano's definitely got. Well, to be fair, though, it's 150 chapters, so it should have a lot of shit. And it's the culmination of all the big shit coming together. So it's tricky because, like, it's the culmination of so many story threads coming together that it's guaranteed. Like, the highlights are almost guaranteed to happen. What you're looking for is for it to also have, like, a good story that holds it all together. And I think that's where I personally think that it doesn't hold up.
I would say that is a very fair thing to claim, i.e. Roger versus Whitebeard in the Odin flashback. A phenomenal moment. Another moment would be the chapter 1044, Luffy reveals Gear 5 for the first time. And then I would say after that, the subsequent chapter of chapter 1045, which I gave a 10 out of 10 rating. One of the few times I gave One Piece a 10 out of 10 rating. But on the flip side, it also has some of the worst moments, like just insult to intelligence, some of the worst moments in the entire series of One Piece.
Does King rate every chapter? Should I be rating every chapter in my chapter reviews? Should I be doing that? That sounds fun. Should I be rating every chapter in my chapter reviews? Do you guys want me to do that? I don't know how I feel about rating every chapter in my chapter, because, like, yeah, maybe I'll do it out of 5. Maybe I'll do, let me make a note. He does? No, probably. Too late to start? Yes, you should. No. Why not? I think that could be fun. You can, yes, yeah. Silver Teeth says no, because if you give a chapter lower than a 7 out of 10, people will call you a hater. I think I would do out of 5 stars. I think that makes it simpler. I think because out of 10, it's just too. Out of 10 is too many fucking numbers, and then you're gonna feel tempted to do like a 9.5 or an 8. I would feel tempted to do the 0.5s. I think I might just do it out of 5. Keep it simple, and might be a simple system of like 5 is a great chapter, like phenomenal chapter. Yeah, like obviously 5 out of 5. Obviously, right? Great chapter. 4 is very good. 3 is like a decent standard chapter. 2, I think it's like meh, and then 1 is bad. Yeah, and I don't think I'd give very many bad like the only bad chapter I'd give from Elbaf would be the Saul chapter, you know. So I think it'd be rare. So you know what? I'll consider that. Let me think about that. Oh, you know what? Here. I have a little notes document. Let me use my notes document. Give me a second, guys. Then we'll get back into it. Yeah. Rating system out of 5. 4 chapters. I think that'll be good. All right, we'll think about doing that. Might do that. Also, let's get the stream likes up to 200 real quick. Let's get the stream likes up to 200. All right, everybody. Continuing on. A, B, C, D, E, F. Yeah, Saul reveal might have been a 0 star. I might have broken the system for that.
And I'm going to go through some of the moments that I think a lot of people were either extremely mixed on or absolutely hated as a collective, where most people, week-to-week readers, would say that this moment was really bad.
I think that's a good angle to go with. Like, go with the moments that, like, a lot of people disliked, because it's just like, then you don't even have to explain that much. It's just like, we all know, like, nobody liked the Kinemon moment.
So number 1 would
Big
be
bomb.
chapter 931.
I was literally, that was the thing I was literally thinking about in my head. I was like, this Big Mom amnesia, and then also Big Mom mothering mode.
One, when Big Mom loses her memories and goes through the amnesia. And this, I think, was one of the few times you saw people at that point in time actively denounce what Oda was doing. A lot of the seasoned cats in One Piece scene kind of saw this moment as a major plot device moment for Big Mom, where Big Mom was going to probably be a net negative for her allied forces and wound up being a boon later on in the story to the Straw Hats.
Big Mom overall basically fucked the Alliance more than helped them.
Some way, which she
took out Toby Roppo and shit and fucked up Ulti. 2 Toby Roppo essentially went down to Big Mom, at least 1.5.
Clearly was in the Udon prisoner mines. Her shenanigans during that section of the arc forced Queen out of the area, which opened the gateway for them.
Yeah, what the yeah, actually, literally, they got to take over Udon because of Big Mom.
To take control of the prisoner mines. And Mother Mode Big Mom, an excuse that allowed essentially Oda to have Big Mom do massive damage to an opponent that Usopp and Nami couldn't defeat, apparently, in Ulti and Page 1. And
yeah, because it's just like, if you're gonna do that, just have another Strahd in the fight. If you decide that Usopp and Nami can't do it together, that's totally fair and reasonable. But then you can have, like, cut Chopper's Ice Oni shit and get him in on this shit or something like that. Get Brook in there too, I don't know.
And in chapter 10, 13.
Or some other fucking characters from the Alliance. Don't swap over Big Mom. These are things I don't even really talk about in mine outside of like they're gonna be mentioned. There's a section that's basically like miscellaneous, and it's just like a litany of like things that I consider just dumb plot points, but that's not the basis of my own. Because one of the reasons I think a lot of the discourse around Wano turned into like people just discussing like plot points and like this was stupid or this plot thread didn't get resolved, etc. And then that kind of made the discourse, it almost reduced the discourse to very surface level topics, and it almost made defending Wano for a lot of people easier, because it's just like, if you want to argue about like the logic of plot points or how dumb or stupid plot points are, like people will always be able to stretch and find rebuttals for that and then argue that, well, the highs are what matter, etc. basically. And so I think that stuff is like almost too in the weeds, so it's not going to be the focus of my video. But it's just like, my video is going to cover all the things that I think are important, like broader story element wise. And then on top of that, it doesn't help that Wano is by far the largest amount of like just random dumb plot shit, comparative to other One Piece arcs. But that's not the main focus. It's just going to be like a slice of the video that just to mention it.
Later on in the arc, we see the Maester Cannon essentially fry Ulti's internal organs. And prior to that, Big Mom just handle Page 1. So normally in the past, Oda will actually have some way of Nami and Usopp really using their wits and their tactics to overcome a challenge. Or those Alabasta, when Usopp and Chopper have to fight against Mr. Four and Miss Merry Christmas, or whether it's Enies Lobby, where Nami fought against Khalifa, they've always been able to overcome opponents that were way stronger than them through tactics and through sheer grit. But in Wano Country, he exploited Big Mom as a plot device to assist Nami and Usopp, and it is, I think, a net negative for them, particularly Usopp, who really gets no shine during that arc. Let's say a net positive. And knowing that Big Mom was going to be a plot device that ultimately would benefit the Straw Hats was such a jarring 180 from her role in the previous arc, where because of her actions, an ally of theirs had to sacrifice himself so he could escape Thailand. Another moment.
I agree. Like, Big Mom she had so much potential. Like, the peak of her was when Pedro died, I think. Because, like, that was also the point where Big Mom, if you go back and read chapter discussions and reviews and things from that period of time, like, there were arguments that people genuinely viewed Big Mom as, like, borderline unstoppable. Like, they were just like, the Strides can't even do anything to her. She's just this force of nature. She's unstoppable. Like, it was kind of like, how's Luffy ever gonna fucking fight these Yonko? Like, that was generally the viewpoint. She was launching Elbaf cannons left and right. Nami had just used, like, Zeus on her in the woods, and it did nothing. She was literally walking through the earth. We had just come off the flashback where we learned that she wrecked Elbaf, the most hyped up nation in One Piece, as a 5-year-old. Like, there were legitimately talks about, like, are we sure that Kaido's stronger than Big Mom? Like, I remember posts like that being a thing. Because we hadn't seen Kaido yet, right? So we had just gotten his introduction, but it was like, maybe Big Mom's even strong. Like, it was just kind of unfathomable how you fight a character like this. Her stock went down as soon as she began chasing the Sunny over the seas. Then more and more dumb shit started to happen to her. And it switched from, like, Big Mom feeling like the most, like, unstoppable and oppressive and, like, impossible to deal with force as of, like, the Tea Party and everything and the Seducing Woods. By the end of it, it felt like she just couldn't do anything. She was she was just, like, dumb, easily manipulated by Cake. Like, there were no consequences to any of this. And then it ended with that sort of, like, the saving grace was kind of like Whole Cake seemed like it ended on this big life or treat moment where, like, I still remember that double page because it's the biggest cliffhanger to a major One Piece storyline in One Piece history across, like, 30 arcs, right? Whole Cake Island's cliffhanger, where all of the Straw Hats allies are left behind. Big Mom arrives and says life or treat, and it's just a terrifying image because, like, we know how strong Big Mom is, and she hasn't fucked up anybody so far this arc. Like, it feels like all the Straw Hats are getting off scot-free, all their alliances, allies are getting off scot-free, and then Big Mom arrives, and it's like, okay, finally she's actually doing something. We're not going to see what it is yet, but, like, she's actually, like, she's going to live up to her infamous, fearsome reputation that Oda built up over the course of this storyline. And then that turned out to just be, like, I don't know, like a fucking fake out or whatever. It was just, like, Oda trying to find a dramatic way to end the arc when there's nothing. It was just, like, Jinbei shows up later, the Sun Pirates show up later, Germa gets captured, even though, like, oh no, not even Germa. Like, a couple Germa members get captured, and then they get saved. I don't know.
That would live in absolute One Piece infamy is at the end of chapter 1014. And then the follow-up later on, where Kaido proceeds to double tap after grabbing a sword, which should have been the end of a character named Kinemon. But instead, Oda decides to really insult our intelligence into believing that somehow, some way, this makes any modicum of sense. 16 chapters later, in chapter 1030, we see Kinemon literally split in half. And apparently, all this time, he was never properly attached from Punk Hazard.
Sid P, thanks for the 10. The fact you decided to react to somebody else's video but can't do your own after 3 years is very disappointing. You should have stuck that analysis and made that video. The analysis is coming. I'm sorry it's disappointing, but I will get it out. That's all I can say at this point. I'm still going to watch other people's videos on it, though. I'm sorry it's disappointing. I should never have put out a specific date for it that I thought I could get it done. That was the biggest mistake. But I feel good because I'm close towards the end. I made progress on it last week. So for me, the end's in sight. I'm not going to put out a date again, but I will get it done. Sid B, thanks for the 5. I understand that raid fail theory blew up in your face, but you should have still made the video. If anything, I want to make the video more because of that, because it helps understand my perspective more. But at the same time, like, the biggest reason is that it's just a very time-consuming project. It's a side project. I think I've explained this at length before. Time-consuming project, side project. If I could just, like, have a week of nothing to do just to finish it out, that would be amazing. But life doesn't work like that.
That was one of the greatest insults to a One Piece fan's intelligence I've ever seen in my life. Whether it was on my channel, Brago's channel, Roger's channel, Zoro Fanboy's channel, you name it, there are so many people that resoundingly said, this is embarrassingly stupid. This is horrible.
Yeah.
How could you not just...
Also, let's get the stream likes up to 200 real quick, because we're almost there.
Kill Kinemon and be done with it. And the idea of stakes and consequences in Wano country not being to the same extent as previous arcs. Death isn't the end-all be-all for trauma and for raising the stakes in a story. That's fair in many respects. And while Wano country does have a lot of character deaths, not all character deaths are created equal. There's a big difference between, let's say, someone like Yasue or someone like Ashura Doji dying versus someone like Whitebeard dying or someone like Ace dying. That's very obvious. Yeah. And Kinemon would have been a character that, if he did die, would have been a more meaningful death to a lot of One Piece readers. But
yeah, I say this multiple times. This is the funniest thing about the way Oda chose to do deaths in Wano country. But it makes sense when I think there's an interview quote that suddenly made everything make sense. But Oda said, just check one thing on time. Oda said in the past that, sorry, hold on. The what do you call? So the funny thing is that the Wano country characters that died, right? The fucking Ashura Doji, Izzo, like there were characters that died, right? They were ironically the ones that we didn't realize died, right? If you remember when Ashura Doji, the bombs blew up, I think most people didn't assume Ashura Doji was dead. It was kind of just like, oh, this is just fucking bombs or whatever. Like, we didn't even fucking know that he died. We didn't know that was a death scene, right? With Izzo, he just collapsed or whatever. Nobody knew that that was Izzo's death scene, that he just died to fucking CP0. But the funny thing is that, like, on the flip side, then Oda had these clearly elaborate, dramatic scenes for Kinemon and Kiku, who he then didn't kill off. That was the bizarre thing. It was like Oda's not, he wasn't worried about like, oh, I can't kill off characters, I have to save everybody. He just did the reverse, which is like the characters that he could have used. Like if you want to use character deaths for drama, that's perfectly great. But then just use Ashura Doji's death or Izzo's death. Like write actually very, like the death scenes that you gave like Kinemon and Kiku, try and write those for Ashura Doji and Izzo. Izzo I know is kind of like last minute thrown in character or whatever, but I think you could have done a lot with Ashura Doji because we'd spent some time with Ashura Doji. Act 1 featured him heavily. His arc was important in Act 2. He had a dramatic flashback and everything in chapter, I want to say 950. Like, you could have made a real great martyr out of that character. That was the weird thing, which was like, Oda did these very dramatic, elaborate death fake outs, and then at the same time, he did some real deaths that were just like so brushed under the rug and so uneventful and so lacking in focus and drama that you wouldn't even know by One Piece standards that those characters just died, because we're used to Oda doing something very dramatic for those character deaths, like a Pedro or something like that, right? Like, Ashura Doji went out in damn near the same way Pedro did, but with Pedro, at least a lot went into that to really, like, it made very clear that this is a sacrifice. We got to spend time with everybody's reactions to Pedro's death. We got to spend time really letting that sink in and making it very clear, and letting some of that weight play into the next few scenes. With Ashura Doji, it was like, I'm running off, something explodes, and then the story just keeps rolling, right? And Izzo, it's just like, okay, Izzo just died in the fucking background or something, like in some throwaway little panel. That was what was bizarre to me, because it's like, you have some deaths that you're going to follow through with. Why not make those dramatic instead of writing some really dramatic fake out deaths and then not actually going through with them? Because like, you have the material, you just chose to spend the dramatic focus on something else where nothing dramatic is actually happening here. Why not just do... That was the thing. It's not like he had some sort of like difficult decision to make, like, oh, like I need to infuse the drama of like death into this story, but I have no way to do so. Kinemon, I'm going to do it, but then I'm going to pull it back at the last minute. It's like, dude, if you want the drama of death, then just use the death that you actually wrote that we didn't even fucking know happened. I think that was very, very confusing for me. Yeah. So I think I got something in my... That's just baffling to me. The quote, I forgot. There's something else that was missing here in my thoughts. The quote that I was going to bring up is that Oda said that he doesn't want to write character deaths because that ruins the ability to have like a big happy party at the end of the story. And if you look back at the One Piece storylines where like a significant character does die in the story, it's like, you know, Marineford, obviously, and that's a storyline that ends with tragedy, so Oda was able to do it there. And then you have Whole Cake Island, which also ends on a pretty sour note. It doesn't end on a big party. Wano had to end on a big party. So Oda was kind of caught with, like, the situation of just... He still wanted to... It's like wanting to have... I've said this all the time with it, but it wanted to have his cake and eat it too, which is like... He wants to have the big happy party, which means that nothing too sad can happen, but he wants to really pretend and convince the reader that something really sad has happened to give the story some sort of really serious, hefty, dramatic weight. But Oda doesn't actually want to do it. Like, he just wants to pretend the story has really hefty, dramatic weight, which is what's really frustrating to me. And it also reflects the fact that, like, ultimately that means that the Scabbards in general were not very powerful or compelling characters if, like, they can just be killed off so haphazardly, like in Ashura Doji and Izzo, and it doesn't affect the party at the end. You know what I mean? That means that Oda basically was like, well, I've written sets of characters, like this arc has enough characters that like I can actually kill some off and it doesn't affect the party. Like we'll just include a shot of some characters looking at the graves, but this isn't going to be a big killjoy. So it's kind of like, it's like a bit of a like it's kind of circular in the sense that like the way I know that the Scabbards weren't really that compelling of characters is that they could just be killed off and it doesn't actually affect anything at the end of the day. You know what I mean? Anyway, continuing on. Except for Kinemon, who would have had some effect, but like he didn't follow through with that one. It is what it is. JP, thanks for the 10-man. Wano was the only arc where I feel like Oda's deviation from his usual writing patterns amounted to no special reason other than he wanted to get to some specific Japanese reference at any cost. That is such an amazing way of putting it. Because one thing that's going in my video that's kind of funny is that like I've talked at length about how Yamato and Hiyori, neither of them, like if you take them out of the Wano storyline, the story doesn't change that much. You could argue that, well, some specific plot things are different. It's like, well, who stalls Kaido for like 20 minutes or something? It's like, well, that's like a plot thing, right? Like that's like the plot wouldn't be constructed like that for the final battle to play out with like that in the first place or whatever. You know, it's like, well then, like if you like it's just that's like a little plot area which could be filled by a variety of means, or Oda could not construct a plot point like that. Like that's something that's not the sole purpose of of Yamato being in the story, right? But really, if you look at her contributions to the story overall, that really is it. Like the story doesn't dramatically change if you take Yamato in or out. Same with Hiyori. I think the biggest thing is like getting Zoro Enma, but Hitetsu could have fucking given Zoro Enma. It was Oda's choice to instead have Hiyori give Zoro Enma, but Hiyori adds nothing to the plot, right? The reason that Hiyori and Yamato are included in the plot and play in a way like very large roles, but at the same time not adding any substance to the story. Like you could remove them both and it doesn't feel like any substance of the Wano story. Like the Wano story is almost like tighter without them, because they're very forced in additions, is because Oda wanted to hit the reference of like Momotaro defeating the Oni with the help of like a monkey, a dog, and a pheasant, right? The monkey Luffy, the dog Yamato, the blue pheasant Hiyori. Those are the things that it rounds out the trio, right? So it's weird because like in a way, yeah, Hiyori plays like a huge, she's treated like an important character in the story while at the same time not being that enmeshed in the story. Like Yamato is forced into the story out of the blue despite having nothing to do with jack shit this whole time. And it's literally like, I was chained up in my dad's basement. I'm also Kaido's kid, chained up in my dad's basement. I read some shit that happened, so I'm on board and I'm here to help. And now I'm just in every chapter without actually contributing to developing the story in any sort of meaningful way, right? But it really is because Oda wanted to hit that reference of like fucking Momotaro taking the monkey, the dog, and the pheasant, or the monkey, the dog, and the bird, or whatever the fuck, you know? Anyway, continuing on. Let's get the stream likes up to 700 real quick. Stormy says, somehow I thought Marco was the pheasant, lol. Marco would have felt weird being that important of a role because he's like just a dude that showed up, whereas Hiyori is technically like Momonosuke's sister, so very important to the story and the characters and everything in a sense, but she never actually is written in that way. You just know she's supposed to be important, but it never actually feels like she's that important to the story. I'd say same thing with Yamato. All right.
Oda could not commit to it. So
all right, continuing on.
So Kinemon's fake out death, I would say comfortably, is the worst fake out death in the history of One Piece.
We got some roasting going on. Weary Exile, thanks for the 2. Kurozumi, we're born to burn. Shittiest message ever. Yeah, that was that was just genuinely fucking stupid as fuck.
Probably by several orders of magnitude. It is.
I think in Oda's mind, it's supposed to be like dramatic or something like that, but it's just like you're literally using their name pretty much as a slur, which goes against like the whole messaging of One Piece. And people are like, no, it was referring to like Orochi specifically. Yeah, but she's using the name of his entire clan and basically saying that this name means you're born to burn. It's not the Orochi name, it's Kurozumi.
It's way worse than Pell's fake out death. And it was a pretty...
Like, we all get what the intent was, but the actual message is totally different than what the intent was.
Cowardly thing for Oda to do to keep Kinemon alive. Another major insult to injury, which ties to part number 2 of my core reasons to why this arc is not a top echelon arc. It is the conclusion of the arc. Yeah. I would say that Wano Country has the worst conclusion out of any conclusion of any post-time skip arc in the story to date.
I hard agree with this, and this is like a whole ass long section in my own video. The final punch between Luffy and Kaido and the way that entire section of storytelling, like the moment the Bajrangan gun begins through the way it ends, is like, it is such a far cry. Like, in my opinion, Oda is the single best mangaka, writer, whatever, that I've ever experienced in terms of like writing really powerful finales to, like, emotionally powerful finales to fights. I think of Luffy versus Lucci, obviously. Luffy versus Crocodile. Luffy versus Arlong. This is just like, he destroys every single one of the things that he's usually really, really fucking good at. For like, this is the Bajrangan is written in the opposite fashion of how all of Oda's like really strong fight finales tend to end.
I'm gonna say that again. Wano Country has so far the worst conclusion out of any conclusion of the One Piece post time skip to date. And you may say that's crazy, but if that is crazy, then why is it that episode 1084 exists? Episode 1084 exists to try and fill in some of the gaps, the glaringly obvious.
What's 1084? I don't even know what 1084 is.
It's horrific gaps that are left wide open in Wano Country. Promises that characters made that were not fulfilled. Parties that are just forgotten about, and so on and so forth. We just leave. Episode 1084. This episode is essentially filler that tries to tie in some of these loose...
Oh, he's talking about everything post Luffy defeating Kaido. I'm talking about like the moment of Luffy defeating Kaido. But you can just wait for my video for that.
Ends with some of these party members that were pouring to us for about a good 4 years of the entirety of Wano Country, but even still far from actually fixing the issue itself, because it was like applying Vaseline to...
I'm happy that this episode I didn't know about exists, because that basically proves that there's a lot of missing shit.
A bullet wound, and the bullet's still in the body. And obviously folks who point to the fact that Zoro never visited Ryoma's grave at the end, which is true. That was a horrible thing, obviously, that Oda never addressed. Or even the plot points surrounding the Nidai Katetsu. That's just dropped and forgotten for some strange reason, even though it seemed to be one of very great interest at the very beginning of Wano Country. Those things, though, are not the biggest issue. The biggest issue has been and will always be, until they are officially a part of the crew on that ship, the moment that Oda assured the readers would happen, because he had the character repeat it time and time and time and time.
No, I mean, I think that was... I'm the opposite of this, which is just like, I almost think like the more that a character repeatedly says that I'm going to be a Straw Hat, when there's no actual substance behind it, to me that more so suggests that no, like for this character to actually get some writing, they need to let go of like their delusion and actually become a real fucking person, you know? Like when it's written in a delusional context, then I think it's, I think people just saw Yamato as like this sexy, hot warrior woman or whatever. So like they look, it's literally, this is a straight up a real thing. Like, let's be very real. In real life, it is a thing that men will look past a lot of crazy if they find a woman attractive. And Yamato is written to be a very attractive female character. This warrior woman vibe that we haven't had before. And she is like straight up delusional. Like her brain is absolute mush. It's just like scrambled eggs in there. And she's spouting out a lot of stuff that's just, it's called out as delusional. Like the first thing she says to Momo is like, hi, I'm Odin. And Momono's like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, this is a delusional nutcase character. If this character keeps saying, I'm going to be a Straw Hat, I'm going to be a Straw Hat after this, etc., and it's along the same breath as the character is saying that, like, I'm Kazuki Odin or whatever, what the character is saying is not supposed to be viewed as having any sort of sense of depth. What the character is saying is basically supposed to be viewed as, like, you are a fucking crazy person, right? This is very different than Nami saying, like, I want to draw a map of the world after we see her whole backstory or something, or like Chopper wanting to cure all diseases after we see the depth of his backstory. The point with Yamato is that it's all cuckoo shit. It's all fucking cuckoo, crazy Cocoa Puffs shit. And people are like, but she's saying she's going to be a Straw Hat. Yes, she is mentally ill. There's no depth to Yamato wanting to be a Straw Hat. This is something that, like, she needs some growth to actually understand that her wanting to be a Straw Hat because Ace told her about his brother when she was fucking chained up, like, years ago or something like that. Like, it is just bizarre mentality and bizarre thinking. Like, actually grow to become your own person, right? Actually develop a reason to want to join the Straw Hat crew outside of just, like, I read it in a book and I heard from Ace, right? That's what's... I think this is why I always had a problem with the Yamato for Nakama group, because it's just like, just because she's a hot character doesn't mean that, like, you need to take anything that she says seriously, because that's not the point.
And time again, but wound up not happening, Yamato joining the crew. Chapter 1057 starts off in horrific fashion when she reveals that she will not be going on the Straw Hat ship. And to be fair, this was relatively mixed, because some folks did not like this at all, like myself. Other folks championed it because Yamato, for them as a character...
Note, by the way, I have always said I'm okay with Yamato joining the Straw Hat crew in the future, as long as she actually grows as a character. Like, going from, like, oh, I want to join for silly reasons, to, like, actually having a character arc, developing, growing, gaining some substance and own personal identity. That's the big thing. Gain your own identity. And then it's like, this character actually fits for the Straw Hats for, like, reasons that have depth. Then I'm down for it. As long as she grows past what she seems to be.
Was unappealing for various reasons. But you could argue it's in the same vein as Gear 5 Luffy.
Bane, thanks for the 5. The payoffs for things Oda set up earlier weren't great in Wano. Remember Marco's message to Luffy on a slip? Turned out to be nothing, lol. Yeah, it's just filled with, like, a million random things like that. It's just bizarre. The Marco thing is actually hilarious. Henchme976, thanks for bringing a Yonko to your member for 3 months, man. More, do you think Oda originally wanted to have Yamato on the crew but couldn't find a way to write her in well, or caved to fan backlash? I think fans wanted her in. I think there was much more backlash when she didn't join. I personally think it's entirely possible that Yamato was a last-minute addition to the story, because never mentioned at all in Act 1, Act 2. She's forced into the story in Act 3 and has very, very minimal role. Like, that's the thing. She's in the story a lot. Like, she's in a lot of chapters, but she has pretty much no real role. I'd say basically, at best, you could argue that her role became, like, talking to Momonosuke a lot. But, I genuinely do think, like, the what JP said earlier about, like, Oda just wanted to hit his obscure Japanese references or whatever. Not obscure to them, obviously, but to us. Oda wanted to have, like, a dog in the story to complete the story of Momotaro or whatever. So Yamato, the dog fruit user or whatever. What's the most elegant way to fit this character in so late? Just make it Kaido's kid. That's the easiest way. How do we quickly make the character already on the protagonist's side? Just say that the character read about what happened in a diary. Let's go with that. They read about what happened in a diary, so they're on board, and they want to help the Alliance, even though they had no prior story set up whatsoever. Also, why do they like Luffy? Because Ace was fucking there. Ace was there. Ace made friends with this character, and so this character is just already devoted to Luffy 100%. Like, it's a lot of stuff that screams like last minute addition. How do I work this character in a way that makes sense? If you wanted to have a character that can regularly talk to Momonosuke through these instances, Kinemon already existed for that. But because Yamato was now a thing, Oda pulled Kinemon aside for that dramatic fake out death or whatever that wasn't a real thing. And then from then on, Momonosuke's talking companion became Yamato instead of Kinemon. So it's just a whole fucking shit show there, you know? Yeah.
Himself. Where Gear 5, I think, is one of the greatest things of all time. But on the flip side, I've seen people actually drop the series.
Enma298, thanks for the 5. A large part of Twitter was arguing over Yamato's pronouns. What's your take on that, Morj? It seemed to me like Yamato was a woman who thought that she was Kazuki Oden, which is very different than, I think, how my understanding of most trans people tend to identify and like their reasons for choosing their pronouns. I think my understanding is that Yamato was like, to me it's the same way that like with Kiku we all call Kiku a she, right? Generally speaking, like Kiku we say she. With Yamato, I don't think it was like transphobic to call her a woman, because it's very clearly a very different situation than like with a Kiku. Like it's not the same thing. It seems to be more so like a obsessive fanboyism of Odin than anything else. But I don't want to get into all that here.
Because of Gear 5 Luffy. I would say Yamato is in the same vein, because Yamato openly tells crew members that she's going to join the crew, and she's accepted by the crew, effectively speaking. But for various reasons, which I won't get into now, Oda decided not to have Yamato join the crew, at least not immediately, which is still an insult to injury considering all the things that were said about Yamato joining the crew for so long, for years, 50, 60 plus chapters, and come our arrival to Agate Island, Yamato is not with the crew. So those are some of the biggest.
I just don't agree with that, because like I think a lot depends on, is the author trying to make us feel like this is a motivation that has substance or not? Because like a lot of it is like right now Loki says that he's the sun god who's going to destroy the world, right? He says that a lot, right? But that doesn't mean that means that Loki has to then destroy the world, or otherwise his character didn't work out, right? I think there's a difference between like, is this a setup for a character to have to grow and realize something that their line of thinking is incorrect? I think that's a big piece of it, and I still think that's a part of it with Yamato, which is like the clear, glaring thing about Yamato is that she has no sense of personal identity from the beginning, right? So she believes these things like, I have to be Odin, I have to join the Straw Hats, but it's not based on anything substantive, right? So that's, to me, there's a difference, right? Like when Zoro says, I have to become the world's strongest swordsman, there's a lot of deep writing that goes into that. That means that like, yeah, we need to see this dude become the world's strongest swordsman. Otherwise the character's just fucking nothing, right? Or like the character's just like the storyline became a fucking mess at some point, right? But like, you know, Yamato, her actual character need is finding her own identity, right? That didn't happen in the Wano arc, but at the very least Oda didn't like turn what is like a basically delusional shit into like actuality and have her rewarded for her delusions by joining the Straw Hats. I think that would be a problem, right? Like Loki, we all know he believes that he's the sun god who's supposed to destroy the world, and that probably does come from some like deep backstory to some degree, but at the same time we can already tell that this is not actually what's supposed to be best for his character. He's supposed to actually learn something at the end of all of this and like develop in some way where he realizes that he doesn't actually need to destroy the world, right?
Insults injury along the conclusion of the Wild Country, which I thought was some like the worst components of the arc, but not the worst reason. You can argue this is the core reason why a vast majority of the other problems of Wild Country exist is because of this chart right here.
Oh, I love this. I love this. I'm fucking using this for my video. Did King make this himself? Yeah, I fucking love this, because this is a big point in my video as well. This is actually the final section I'm on, which is characters. This is the biggest problem with Wano. Well, maybe not the big. Wano actually has so many things that you can call the biggest problem, but this is a huge problem, and it's just so glaringly noticeable. It is just downright insane. Like, and I'm glad that I can see it visualized in a chart, because for me in my script, I'm just listing characters, but this puts things in such better perspective. I love this. I'm using this for my video. I gotta make a fucking note. All right, I love this chart. Did King make this chart himself? I'll ask him. Or is this like an open
Shout
source
to Chat
chart?
GPT. This chart is a representation of here. Shout to Chat GPT.
Okay, Chat GPT, baby.
This chart is a representation of how many characters were a part of each arc so far in the
That's crazy. Dressrosa is that low
entire series
compared to Wano? Dressrosa. And I would usually think of Dressrosa as an arc that is like overloaded with a shit ton of side characters. That is insane.
including the ongoing
Fish Blank. I have a live stream appointment with somebody in 5 minutes, but if you can wait shortly, let me just try and finish this out.
Bath arc. And you can see throughout the entirety of the series, there are a lot of characters. Some you have 40 characters that are a part of an arc. Some are going to the 50. Some
And my 298 says, thanks for the 2. Why is chat so mean?
are reaching the
Are they upset about the pronouns thing? I think that was just like a very heated debate for a long period of time. So people don't want to reopen that.
60 in terms of characters that are part of the arc. Whole Cake Island, Big Mom and her children. We have like 60 characters of relevance in those arc. And of those 60, you'd have, let's say, around like 37 of them being relatively unique and significant characters. That's 37 unique and significant characters in a single arc. Most stories
And you can see the upward trend as we go through post time skip.
do not manage that many characters in an arc, let alone them being significant characters in some way, plot movers in some way. Even a story like My Hero Academia can barely manage one class.
I really love that Kings bring this up, because this is the biggest thing with Wano Country. Like, it is just, at a certain point, it's just not even logical to say that, like, a good story can be told with, like, an equal number of characters as, like, chapters at a certain point, which is an exaggeration, but, like, it's, you know, at a certain point, you have to acknowledge that you have to some degree, like, the more you're trying to fit into a given arc, that means that to some degree, you have to be sacrificing some degree of, like, singular character focus or like general focus in general. Like you're at some point you're getting bloat, right? Like you have to acknowledge that that's happening at some point. It wouldn't be logical to say like, oh, magically Wano can have like 10x the characters in Enies Lobby, but like just as good focused character writing as Enies Lobby. It doesn't make any fucking sense. Like the arc's only like 50 chapters longer than like Water 7 and Enies Lobby together. So you can't have 10x the characters and have exactly the same amount of focus.
Look at Marineford. That's so many people involved. Marineford is teetering on like 50 characters of prominence. And of those 50 characters, 27 of them are unique and significant characters that are plot movers. So you can see how Oda has been adding more.
And big difference though with Marineford is that a lot of those are characters that we already know. With Wano, the problem is that it's a shit. So like you're not having to lay groundwork for each one. With Wano, it's like 50 fucking new characters that we have to learn and like really rush groundwork for each, and they're all like, it's just shit being thrown at the wall.
More and more and more characters on a regular basis.
Up the speed of this just to get to my appointment on time. So let's try to do this.
To all these arcs, but the Wano Country bar is the Burj Khalifa of the whole chart. Wano Country has almost 120 characters that are involved in the story. Compared to Marineford, it's almost tripling Marineford. It's almost tripling Marineford, ladies and gentlemen. If you combine Jaya and Skypiea together, in terms of characters of prominence, it is literally tripling Jaya and Skypiea combined. And
I would really argue that like with Marineford and shit, like the number of characters that are actually like King's defining it by plot movers, I'm defining by characters that actually need that actually get like character focus. Marineford was very tight in terms of character focus. It's like Whitebeard, Ace, you could argue Admirals to a degree, Garps, and like the character focus was very actually focused in Marineford. Like very focused. Like yeah, like Moria was there and he's technically a plot mover, but he doesn't need to, we're not getting like a storyline for Moria. Whereas with like Wano, it's like so many characters and like everyone, like Shinobu is a character that's getting character focus, but it's just shallow, right? Like Raizo is a character that's getting character focus, but it's just shallow. Like there's so many characters that are new that are being introduced to us that we have to spend time with, that we have to get to know, that we're supposed to get entrenched in like their conflict, like their moral conflict or their character conflict and their dilemma and everything. But there's so little time for each one. It's just like rush job after rush job.
Those 120 some odd characters, 80 of these characters are characters of unique significance to the actual plot. This is a mind-blowing, just seeing the actual chart. It is a mind-blowing realization of the core issue of Wano Country. I've said before, I'll say again in this video, that Wano Country is for sure the longest arc in the entire series of One Piece, but it also feels rushed. Wano Country, that's right, is a rushed arc. And folks would call me crazy when I said it back then. When I see this chart, I think it only proves my ideas right. Where Wano Country should have been 5.5 to 6 years long.
Or it should have just fucking cut a bunch of the characters. You didn't need all those fucking scabbards. I think the simple fact that like a scabbard like Kanjo is removed, but then Oda can just pull another scabbard like Izzo out of his ass and be like, but now Izzo's here, and it feels nothing. It doesn't feel like anything changes about the scabbard's dynamic. It's just like, well, we need to have 9, right? It's just, it means that the number of scabbards is basically just like, there's a superfluous amount of scabbards at a certain point. Because like, it just doesn't mean anything to swap them back and forth.
Considering the amount of major players that Oda was working with in Wano Country and how much time each character would need based on previous arcs, and how much time Oda gave certain major players, certain main characters, groups and factions for world building sake, of course flashbacks, things of that sort. So whether your issue with the story involves pace, whether it involves characterization and character growth, whether it involves the stakes, as Webber said in his video. An example that we're brought up, let's say, of trying to fix one of the major failures of the story. For number 3, when Luffy gets punted off the island by Kaido, instead of Yamato stalling out Kaido, you have the Straw Hats come up there some way, and they try and deal with Kaido. Like in the same vein as, let's say, Thriller Bark, where Thriller Bark...
Yeah, I mean, that would have been fucking awesome, and we would have actually cared, because we care about the fucking Straw Hats, and Yamato's a random, like, late-game insert who we don't know jack shit about.
Had to fight against Oars Luffy when Monkey D himself was lost in the forest. So a situation where you have the crew themselves defending Luffy on the rooftop, that could have been a great way to showcase the consequences of Luffy's failure, and several Straw Hats getting gravely injured as a result of that. Not just, let's say, Luffy and Zoro themselves in the arc, but it also include Nami, it also include Usopp, it also includes, let's say, Chopper. Half the crew require prolonged treatment because of Luffy's failure. But no, so we have Yamato. And you can point to several reasons to why it's the case. But I think the core reason would also stem from the fact that there are other characters that need to get some attention to even stride attention. So there's these CP agents that are involved with Brook and Robin, whether it's Usopp, whether it's Kinojo and Kinemon who are at death's door. Kinemon damn near doing mouth-to-mouth with Grim from Billy and Mandy himself, whether it's Jinbei having to do the water jutsu with Raizo. The list goes on and on and on. Whether it's Sanji being treated by Osome and the Pleasant Quarter girls at the Queen fight. There are so many characters that are involved in this arc. There's not enough time, especially given Oda's mindset. And Oda likes to give a lot of prominent characters some shine here and there at a minimum, but there's just not enough time. Like they could in previous arcs. Even in terms of like Marineford standards, even that would be a hard-pressed thing to do in Wano Country, because Marineford in terms of characters, because Marineford is almost getting 3x in terms of character numbers in Wano. It's unbelievable. This is why I think a lot of folks are justifiable in saying that Wano Country sucks. It's not my top 10 arcs. Though Yamato joining the crew would retroactively make the arc better. Yes, it would. But we're not there yet. On that note, I was inspired by this video because, again, just...
All right. All right. Good shit. I do have a... Okay. So we're going to share our thoughts on that in a second. Right now, I got some supers to catch up on. We'll share final thoughts on that in a second. I've got a 10-minute viewer appointment real quick that I'm 2 minutes behind on. So Fishblank, if you want to join us, then please join us. I guess in the meantime, I can catch up on other stuff. But Fishblank, you have your scheduled time right now if you want to hop in. And Fish has entered the room. Hey, nice to meet you, man. What's going on? Oh, hold on. Give me a second here. I think you're muted.
Yo.
Hey. Yeah. Everybody say hi to Fishblank. Were you watching the reaction just now?
I was, yeah. I just go by Fish, by the way.
Oh, Fish. Okay, Fish.
Yeah.
All right.
How's it going?
Good, man. How about you?
Chilling. Okay, I really do agree with 90% of your opinions about One Piece. My first intro to you was when was your old Blackbeard video, because I used to go onto YouTube and search up One Piece video essays, and most of the time that shit was trash. It was really old, like the bar graphs of just trying to power scale and everything. And then one time I searched it up and it was your Blackbeard video, and it helped me enjoy One Piece more.
Oh,
And I thought it
man.
was real.
That's really nice to hear, man. Honestly. I really appreciate that.
I loved, and one of the things is like Oda talks about how like you don't have to be like a boy to enjoy manga.
Hmm.
You just have to have like the heart of a 15-year-old boy.
Yeah.
I didn't understand that until like relatively recently. Like in Hunter x Hunter, I'm not gonna spoil it, but with Kurapika versus Uvo game,
Yeah.
I felt like a 15-year-old boy. I was watching that during COVID. like in my 20s, and it just blew my mind. Um, and kind of like the nature of manga is where we're able to linger on these ideas. And that's one of the things I really like. It's like pausing every 20 minutes in a movie,
Mhm.
kind of like with those breaks every week or 2 weeks, and you really get to analyze it.
Yeah.
'Cause for the longest, I just thought like Kurapika would die if he went up against like any strong character, and the same thing with like Luffy,
Yeah.
because you really get to linger in these worlds, and that's one of the things I love about it. Um, and you also get to like kind of see how people think. Like the mangaka for Chainsaw Man,
Yeah.
he's
Yeah.
really
Fujimoto.
offbeat.
He's really
Yeah,
what?
offbeat,
Yeah. Very, very
and
offbeat. Very
it's
refreshing.
weird. Just the you can see that the way he thinks is not like normal people.
No, that
Even
dude is
with
special.
Oda, like you kind of pointed out this pattern of there's always this big bomb, like the escalation at the end.
Yeah.
And in trying to predict him, he always adds like an X factor that's impossible to predict. But I'm wondering what the big bomb is going to be for the like last arc where it's like, oh shit, like what's the next level of escalation?
Yeah, man. So for the last arc, I personally think that, and plus, first of all, thanks for sharing all that because like it is
Of
always
course,
interesting to hear people's journeys, and you sound like a very reflective person. Um, so um, for the last arc, I personally feel like we got a glimpse of it with Lucia Kingdom being destroyed. So we know that if the world, if the ancient weapons are used like 5 more times, the entire planet's flooded. So if like Uranus, whatever weapon the world government has, if that's used 5 more meters, sorry, 5 more times, the world floods 5 more meters, then the planet is fucked. So my feeling is that what the ancient weapons themselves make for the final bomb, specifically whatever Emu's got, I feel like it's gonna come down to Emu trying to just flood the world over, and then that being the thing that Luffy has to essentially stop in the process of defeating Emu. That's my feeling right now, but I don't know. It's
I
hard to
agree.
tell. Yeah,
I agree, but like there's kind of like there's always that X factor that he likes to add, and the fact that there's already a world destroying like item makes me wonder because I feel like it's almost guaranteed that he's gonna have that.
sorry. One more time. You're saying an item?
Yeah,
Uh,
because there's always the like X factor,
yeah,
and he has a world destroying item like Pluton,
yeah,
and I'm wondering if there's going to be like something even beyond that. I don't know why he
yeah,
would need that, but it's just the way he writes. He seems to always want something like that.
yeah. He likes having. So, in my opinion, the thing that he does that's really really effective, and why he likes having that is because I think his system is he likes to one have all the other characters win their fight. So have everybody else win their fight, and then he likes to have everything be very very okay. So this might be a bit of a tangent, but when I look at like a lot of other series, lots of times when it's time for the protagonist to fight the antagonist to conclude the arc, like let's say Naruto versus Pain or like Goku versus uh, Frieza or whatever, like everything else in the story tends to stop and it's just the hero and the villain fighting. And that's often very good. Like those are great fights. Don't get me wrong. But what Oda likes to do is he likes to frame it like the events of the arc are all still occurring and they've just reached a boiling point and they're the backdrop of Luffy fighting the villain. So like when Luffy's fighting Crocodile, the Alabasta Civil War is going on up top, and the bomb is gonna go off, and all of that's happening. Like when Luffy's fighting like Lucci, like the Buster Call is happening, and the Strats are like drowning underneath that. I think Oda really likes doing this because it feels more in the flow of the story, but two, it layers drama on top of one another, so it sets up a situation where it feels like it's not just about Luffy defeating the bad guy. It feels like there's something else that's just suffocating the situation and making all the other characters feel truly desperate and helpless. Like it makes it so everybody's already suffering, and then once Luffy beats the bad guy, that cuts through and ends all the suffering. Versus in lots of other series, like Naruto and Pain are fighting, and that's a great fight. But it's kind of like everybody's holding their breath and watching and waiting for Naruto to defeat Pain, right? Like Goku's fighting Piccolo, everybody's watching and waiting for Goku to defeat Piccolo. And like the consequences are going to be like, well, if the hero loses to the villain here, then the villain's going to go on to do bad stuff. But Oda likes to make it concurrent. He likes to make it so like everybody is already suffering from something in real time that can only be solved or resolved once Luffy beats the bad guy. So I really love that. That feels more dramatic to me, and that's also one of the things I was severely missing from Wano. But I'll talk about that in my big video. But yeah, go ahead.
No, I completely agree. That's one of my favorite parts of his writing. He hits a crescendo,
Yeah,
and it's really, really important to him that he goes like all the way to the crescendo, like kind of a zenith,
yeah.
and then like afterwards, it is the dude who wrote Dune described it as a coital rhythm,
Mm.
where it's literally like paced like sex, where the I know it's funny as hell,
No,
but like
that's a cool
it
quote.
makes
Yeah,
perfect sense
yeah,
because there's like like the climax, and then afterwards it like slows down. And
yeah.
Dune and every One Piece arc has that same vibe.
Mm.
I recently reread Skypiea, and it was kind of the exact same thing.
The Raigo.
Um,
Yeah,
even outside of that though, like so the stuff I love about Skypiea and Oda's writing is that every arc and every backstory exists fully in its own world.
yeah,
Like there's kind of like levels to the fans, and a lot of us kind of vaguely remember Skypiea. Other people, like there's the type of fan who reads casually every week, and they're the reason why we need a panel reminding us who Dory and Brogy are.
yeah,
And then there's the rest of us who are kind of like in the middle where we remember most of the story beats, but we really don't care outside of the grand scheme of things. That was me with Skypiea, and then I jumped back in and I realized Nolan and Calgara's relationship was like transcendent.
yeah.
It felt like Shakespearean.
Yeah. No, it was
Like it's
really beautiful. And I
really
loved, like you were saying, like it's just not a single character today is directly connected to Nolan and Kakara. Like that just happens in its own bubble, but the legacy that it leaves behind does frame everything that's happening today and frames it as like both a tragedy and like sort of very poetic full circle moment at the same time. Like I don't know. He's got so many beautiful stories that he wants to tell, and it is amazing that he can just slot it into different little bubbles in the One Piece world without it being tied to the current events necessarily.
exactly because Togashi does the same thing
Yeah.
where it'd be like hard to do a one shot of another manga because people might not care about it, but you can squeeze it into your little thing
Yeah.
because it
Yeah.
has so much flexibility.
Yeah. So you just tell the story you want to tell, but I think Tagashi goes even more out on it. Like I don't know if you're reading the current arc or whatever, but like mild
And
spoilers, it
10
doesn't
out
even
of 10.
have Gon and Killua or anything like that. So like he will do like a large part of the cast of characters is like totally separate from anything that he's done before. Um, yeah.
And
Yeah.
with Nolan Calgara, like that one scene where Calgara was like, "If this is not God, then what did I kill?"
Yeah.
I thought it was 10 out of 10. Just what
Yeah.
an incredible scene.
No, it's a really really strong one, and I've actually had to go back and reread that a few times lately because like some of my recent videos have covered like emu and like like a lot of it's tied to Elbaf stuff too. So like I kind of got to go back and read some of the messaging from Skypiea. So that's a flashback that like I've hit a few times as of late, and it still always hits me like how strong the writing is and how confident Oda was to just write this flashback that's got nothing to do with the main characters or anything like that, but it's just like a really strong short story from way back when.
Yeah. If I think I have like I might be out of time, but the
It's all good,
last
man. I think you've been sharing some really interesting thoughts, and I think I've talked a lot. So yeah.
I appreciate it. The last couple things. So in terms of like my personal theories,
Mhm.
I'm the one who mentioned Lucci basically being a cat on the celestial dragon's like lap, and they're
Oh.
petting him, and then he gets up and you realize that it's Lucci. I
Ah.
love that as an idea because like he's literally like a pet to them in the same way that a
Yeah.
kind of a dog.
That's funny. That's
And
actually really fun. That's a really good parallel. Yeah.
I love that because it one disrespects people like a character that people really really love,
Yeah.
and it just shows like he is like very much like a pet.
Yeah.
He has no autonomy.
Yeah. I still think Lucci might get drafted to the God's Knights or something if things get really south. But yeah, the character's kind of fallen in a sense because way back in Enies Lobby, he was the man. Like, he was like the most fearsome warrior on the world government side imaginable, and now he's basically gets dog walked
But
basically
even
like
in the
several
sense of
times.
like,
Hmm.
even in the sense of there's a lot of shame in being just a weapon,
Yeah.
and people really love that about him. But he has no agency. Like
No.
it's very sad. Even in his bloodlust, like
Yeah.
he very much is a dog.
He's not allowed to do exactly what he wants. Yeah.
In terms of Kainu and Green Bull, the I relate them to kind of like Oda's backstory in Japan, how Green Bull. I mean, so Akainu represents, like fascism and the how destructive it is, and at the same time, like earthquakes, uh, and magma and volcanoes being so destructive because Oda is from Japan, and all these things are kind of interrelated.
Oh, I didn't think about that. Yeah, not the context of what those things symbolically mean from the land that he's from. That's interesting.
And the same thing with like Green Bull, how he's kind of like symbolic of obviously like prosperity. Uh,
Mm,
Kainu and Green Bull could create entire islands and populate them with like the ability to create food.
yeah.
Like they could create Hawaii,
Yeah, that's
but
true.
the like them being an allegory for fascism and abundance respectively, I think is really cool because again, they are dogs.
Yeah.
Like they would never ever do that because that's not the nature of their role.
No, those are really good points, man. Do you have a social you want to shout out or something?
I did. That's the last
Yeah,
thing.
I'm sure people
Uh,
really want to hear more.
I honestly don't talk about One Piece that much on there,
Okay.
but I would love to more because you create a really good space to talk about it kind of like in a cerebral way.
Thanks,
But
man. I
it,
appreciate that.
yeah, of course, just keep doing what you're doing.
Yeah. What did you want to shout out? Thank you.
At Negus underscore SAYS at
Hold on.
Negus underscore
You
says
might need to do this one more time. At what?
Negus Negus.
Yep.
Am I on camera? I literally have it written down.
Oh, okay. At Negus underscore
Underscore.
says. Ah, okay. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Here, let me screen share this real quick. So people can see. So if you guys want to follow him at Black Air Force Miles Morales, then please do. And yeah, I'll just drop it in the chat as well to make sure that people can follow you. But yeah,
All
man,
right.
very, very
Thank you so
thoughtful.
much.
Thank you. Great talking to you, man.
Have a good one.
You
Peace.
too, man. Appreciate it. All right, let me drop this in chat. Oh my god. Wait, was he not on? Oh shit, man. Oh shit, man. I, I thought that he was on camera. Fuck. I'm sorry, man. Fuck fish. I feel so bad. Okay, let me make sure I share his Twitter on here. But that was a really really great call in, for sure. Hold on, let me pin this shit. Oh my god. You guys didn't say anything. Why didn't you guys say anything? God damn. Or maybe you guys were saying some stuff and I didn't even notice. Fuck. Please go. I feel like shit now. Please go to his Twitter. Follow him back. Or follow it. I'll follow him back. Please go to his Twitter. Um. Yeah, check it out. I'm sure he's got a lot more interesting thoughts. That was a great call in. Very much enjoyed hearing his reflections on a lot of points in the story. Yeah, that was shit. I fucked up. I hope. So he says we didn't know. Trevor says I didn't know we were supposed to see him. I always do the screen share for the call-ins. I always do the screen share for the call-ins. Oh, god damn it. Well, go check him out. Go check him out. Stormy says he wouldn't have read it, but we don't know. We don't know. I might have caught it. Didn't know you usually had people on camera. Well, It depends, because lots of times they don't want to share their face, so it depends. But I do try and at least show the Zoom call. I feel bad, Fish, but hopefully more people go check out your social and everything like that, because I think everybody really enjoyed your call-in. Yeah, definitely everybody shouts in the chat for Fish. There's some great points that he made, and just some really great observations and reflections on the series. Yeah. I'm sorry about that, man. If you're watching this now, I swear I thought that you were on camera. Yeah. All right, guys. All right. Yeah. Let me catch up on supers real quick. Lady Hero, thanks for the 5. The Kurozumi plotline was something that was negligible at best, making Otama a Kurozumi in an SBS, not in story, was wasted for a so-called happy ending. There's just too much going on. Because, like, there's so many storylines that Oda wanted to fit in there, and he wanted to weave together, and there just wasn't enough time. It's like, it's so much easier to just tell a singular tight storyline than try and fit in, like, 50 different things. Like, well, there's this whole, like, even just the fact that Wano has, like, a class system. That's actually supposed to be, like, when I reread Wano, that's supposed to be, like, a important theme, but it doesn't really come through for most people because it just doesn't present itself well in the story that often. You know, like the Kurozumi and like them being persecuted and everything, like that's important to the story, but also not really. Like it could even be removed and that not that much changes because it's just trying to cover too much. Weary Exile, thanks for the 2. Yamato is literally a gooner bait with side tits. Yeah. It's just the way it is. Bane, thanks for the 2. Birdcage at higher stakes than Onigishima's bomb. Oh, for sure. Oh, for sure. Like, this is something I talk about in the Wano analysis. Like, I just finished writing this section earlier, like last week. But normally there's like a singular, really powerful ticking time bomb. In Wano, in the Onigashima battle, Oda tried to do like several different ones all together. Like, there's a fire going on, but also there's some bombs that might blow up, but also Onigashima's gonna fall on the flower capital. And all 3 of those were fucking half-assed. All 3 of those. Yeah. Bane, thanks for the 5. Morj, Oda's editors share some blame for Wano. During Wano run, Torishima said Oda's younger editors couldn't say no to him like previous editors did. I don't think that's them taking the blame then, though, because it sounds like, do you think he's saying that those editors, like, there's 2 ways to interpret it, because it's like, one, it's saying like they couldn't say no, as in like they just loved everything that he was saying, and so they couldn't, like, they just didn't want to say no, they just loved every idea. The other way you could view it is like they no longer have the power to say no because Oda's that big in the industry. Like, what's an editor going to do at this point? Say no, especially a newer one who you don't have a working relationship with. Because if that's the case, then ultimately, then there's nothing they can really do. If like that man is essentially your boss, right? Like, if he doesn't respect what you have to say because he's so certain at this point that his vision is correct always, then there's nothing that, and Oda has every single right to feel that way because he built a manga that can't be compared to anything else in the sphere, right? Like the most successful story of all time, most successful manga of all time ever, right? By a huge, large margin. So I'm not trying to say like, not trying to say that he shouldn't trust his instincts because that's obviously what's gotten us so far, right? It's just that at a certain point, like it's if Oda doesn't want to listen to what they're saying, then Oda doesn't want to listen to what they're saying. Like that's just basically it, and there's not anything that they can do about that, right? And it's just the way it is because like if you don't have that prior working relationship over a long period of time, and it's just somebody new, even if their ideas are good, they haven't been doing this with you for so long, and you've ultimately built most of this yourself. So like if you feel like you've already got a handle on it, and they're saying like maybe we should do it this way or that way, and then you're like, no, I know what I'm doing, then that's just gonna be what happens, you know? there were a bunch of glazers, a bunch of yes men. Yeah, maybe that is the case. So I guess it just depends. Like, to me, there's a difference between like somebody saying like somebody genuinely believing that everything there's three versions. Like, one is like the editors genuinely believe that everything Oda is doing is like perfect, and so they're like very little pushback. Two, they are just obedient yes men, where even if they think that they would do something differently, they just suck up and say whatever, or say it's good. Or three, they try to say no, but Oda doesn't want to listen anymore, right? That was kind of my interpretation of that, because I heard that quote. But I think it's just hard to say. Yeah, that's my biggest thing. Tornado says, I feel like we don't know enough about the editorial process to comment. Yeah, that's just the biggest thing at the end of the day. So I don't want to disparage anyone for being anyone's fault in particular, because we don't know ultimately how those conversations play out behind the scenes. I guess what we do know is that at least in the past, there was a point in the story where Oda took more feedback from editors who were having more of an influence on the story. Bunfagum, thanks for the 7. Crazy how Shanks embodies Koshiro's way of the sword more than Mihawk. Shanks is something worth protecting, while Mihawk protects his self-interest. That's kind of true. That is interesting. That's true. I don't want to get into like Shanks Mihawk debates today. Not today. But that is true. Because Shanks, his whole thing is he wants to he fights only to protect. Mihawk's interesting because I'm very curious about. I would love to. I feel like Mihawk probably has a really interesting, just general philosophy and a lot to expound upon. We just haven't gotten to that side of his character just yet. And especially now that Oda's hinted at certain backstories and stuff for him, like the story behind Mihawk. I'm very interested to see, like, I don't think that he's just, like, got a totally hollow, bad guy swordsman philosophy. I think we just got to wait to get to what his shit is. I also think that with Mihawk, he does drop a lot of wisdom bombs, like in Baratier and things like that. But, it's not just like some pure evil cackling swordsman or whatever. But, yeah, it's true that at least the Koshiro way of the sword is more like Shanks than Mihawk. Yeah. Tornado says, with the hype that Mihawk fans give him, I feel that there can't be a good payoff. That's the biggest thing, because, like, I think that Mihawk fans, again, like, a lot of them do legitimately feel like Mihawk is stronger than Roger and Whitebeard. Like, a lot of them legitimately believe that. So, if the standards are that high, I feel like no matter what Oda does with the character, it's going to feel disappointing to them, because it's like, who would Mihawk fight that would be as satisfying? Like, what feats could he have that would be satisfying for people who believe that Mihawk has to scale above Roger and Whitebeard in their prime? I don't know. Warp says, got time to watch another video? Definitely not today, but I would consider it in the future. My fear is that based on what Little King hinted at in the intro of this video, that there might be too much overlap. Like, I don't want to go into your video, and it's talking a lot about stakes and tension and those sort of things too much or too in-depth, because I would rather just get my own thoughts out first, and then maybe I would react to your take on those things. Because even some of the things that King referenced are already things that, like, I do agree with, and I think I would rather avoid watching, like, a full video essay on. But I would definitely recommend, like, people, if you want to check out Werb's Wano video, why Wano didn't have stakes and every other arc did. Here, let me link that.
When Wano...
I'm going to drop that in chat, too. Can't wait for One Piece planetary feats. I don't think One Piece is... I think what people trying to... Because you see it on Twitter all the time, like people trying to compare universes and stuff. I think One Piece should just respectfully bow out of those discussions. Because it doesn't need... Like, I just don't think One Piece is ever going to do well in those sort of discussions, right? Like, against, I guess, like, My Hero and things that are maybe a bit more grounded. I don't even know how crazy My Hero gets down the line. But... Yeah, sure, but like people want to argue it against like pretty sure Naruto they can like fuck up, they can destroy the moon and shit now. Bleach is like universal level beings or to some degree. Like I just don't think I don't think I don't think One Piece scales well to a lot of these universes. I just don't think there's any point in getting into it, you know? If you want to scale One Piece versus like Hunter x Hunter, then that's totally fine. But people want to put One Piece for I've seen people trying to argue like Luffy versus Goku and shit, and it's just like I don't think there's any point. Deku solos the verse trust. Is Deku that strong now? Henchme 976 is scaling like that sucks for hack stuff anyways. Yeah, that's actually a really good point because like the Bleach universe is very complicated because at the very tippy top because there's like this transition area where it's like I don't even know how you compare characters like there's characters that you can scale. Like Bleach is straight up power stuff, right? Like how strong is Kenpachi or something like that. That stuff has like a hard limit that you can actually scale against other stories. But then Bleach has all these conceptual bad guys and abilities and stuff like that. And it's like, I'm a Royal Guard member and I control the color black. It's like, the color black? Well, fuck, I don't know how we fight that. Or maybe it's easy to fight. I'm not sure. It's a pretty prominent color. Is it better to control black than like red or yellow? I don't know. But fuck, what happens if I don't even know what fighting the color black means? You know? And don't even get started on like Yuha Bak, because like that his ability set is just bullshit, right? Fighting like Gerard the Miracle, I don't know. That's one of the reasons that like that's actually the biggest reason that I think that Bleach shouldn't do a Hell arc, because I feel like everything that Bleach needs to conclude actually does conclude well with 1,000 Year Blood War. I didn't feel like that when it came out in the manga because everything was just done in such a sloppy way, but it really does feel like 1,000 Year Blood War goes through as many characters as it can and like checks off some like final points for all of them, right? Like you see close to all the bankais that you need to see, all the character stuff like Mayuri Nemu, Shunsui, Nano. It covers pretty much everything. Like Kenpachi, Yachiro, like just covers everything you would really need. Brings Ichigo's story to a close. So like the Hell arc right off the bat, it's a bad sign that it's starting off with the idea that like, okay, now it's in the future, way in the future, and Ichigo has a kid, right? So like huge time skip basically separates it from all the events of the story that unfolded in the past that were all building on one another. Like huge time skip just skips way ahead, and it feels like it's covering Hell, so it's trying to explore, okay, what's an aspect of the universe that technically hasn't been explored yet? And finally, it's like the kid. The kid thing is always bad because it reeks of basically like the main character's storyline is actually done and complete, but like a kid becomes like an opportunity to like try and shake things up. Like it's the Boruto syndrome, but you see it in movies and stuff all the time. I would argue Dragon Ball to Dragon Ball Z is the only time it worked well, and that's because Dragon Ball is such a simplistic show in terms of its character writing. So the like skip 10 years and focus on the main character's kid, I think is never it never suggests to me that the author was actually like intending for the story to flow into these events. It's just trying to find a way to start something new. So that's a lot of reasons I think the Hell arc is not a good idea. But the biggest reason I think that the Hell arc is not a good idea, this is where the point where I started and then I wandered. The biggest reason I feel like the Hell arc is not a good idea is because I genuinely don't know where it is. For almost no story do I think, oh, the story can't keep going because the power scaling is too strong. Because you can always raise the power scaling, right? Like the Dragon Ball characters, you would say that they should have topped out at blowing up planets, but then it's like, oh, we can blow up galaxies and now we can blow up universes. Like you can always raise the power scale. Bleach is a very interesting special case where I actually don't know how they would do that. Because with Bleach, too many of the bad guys' abilities slowly became too conceptual, right? In the sense that like we're hitting the ceiling raised and raised and raised to the point where it's like the abilities they have are like Yuha Bak. Like let's even leave Yuha Bak alone, right? That's the final boss. But even the antithesis or the balance, it's like anything that happens to me, I can reverse it to you. Any bad stuff that's happening to me, it gets sent back to you. Those are already broken ass abilities. Like the balance is basically like spoilers for like fucking later JoJo's parts or whatever, but like JoJo's part 7 features like an ability like that, and it's like close to fucking unbeatable ability. Okay, I'm butchering a bit of what the balance actually does, but I'm making some vague comparisons here. But the balance, the antithesis, and it's like, okay, you even step back from those, it's like, okay, Lile Baro, completely intangible and can delete anything. What the fuck? Okay. Gerard Valkyrie, keep basically, like, nothing can kill you as long as some bullshit, like, you just keep evolving to get more and more powerful, like, potentially close to infinite evolution and power. And then Yuha Bak, you can see the future. Anything you see that happens in the future is basically negated, doesn't work. It's not possible to, because like the way Bleach has done it in the past, it's like, okay, going from like Espada to the Sternritter, the jump is clear because like the characters are all getting stronger, more powerful abilities, etc. But then once the Sternritter hit their top end, it's all these vague, weird conceptual abilities. So then it's like, how do you now create how do you create a cast of villains that in general top these abilities, right? Like you can't just have like you have to now think of like dozens, like to feel like substantially like a bigger threat than the Sternritter, you have to have like dozens of villains that have these crazy conceptual abilities that all like almost all of the top Sternritter abilities, like the antithesis, the ballast, like Lila Bar's X-axis, they're almost like Tita, like Kubo trying to think of like what's almost like in a little kid way, like an ability that like, haha, this is just the strongest ability there is. Like my ability is to beat all other abilities, right? Like, you know, like when you're a little kid, you like and you're like you trying to make up abilities that like can beat whatever, like you're playing pretend or whatever. It's like, well, my ability can just beat your ability. Like that's my power is just, it's going to be always stronger than your power. That's like what a lot of the Sternritter's abilities felt like at the top level, like just more and more absurd. So how do you create like a large cast of villains that tops that level of threat, that makes like the way the Sternritter made the Espada look, like Halaba looked like a joke and stuff like that? How do you make that happen now to the Sternritter? It's very hard, and Hell is such a high bar in terms of just like what, like the fucking name is Hell, right? Like you expect something very, very like crazy out of that, right? That tops everything in the past. And then the bigger thing is, if you're making more villains that are like that, right? How the fuck do the protagonists keep up anymore? Because the big thing with Thousand Year Blood War is that this was kind of the tipping point where, like, whereas against the Espada, everyone could kind of match up and fight, like, straight head on and beat Espada and everything, even if it kind of really pushed them hard. But with the abilities that the Sternritter have at the very end, their abilities are so powerful and so conceptual that it's past the point that, like, the Shinigami can actually, like, the Shinigami go, like, it's part of the overwhelming sense of despair over the course of the arc. They go all out. They use all of their abilities, like, all their bankais and everything. And it still takes like massive team efforts to take down even one Sternritter, and even then, it often fails or doesn't quite work or something like that. And then there's some bullshit that happens later on, or takes like a god-slaying sword. So it already feels like, based on the powers that the characters have, like, how the fuck is Byakuya gonna fight like more conceptual villains? Like, how is like even Shunsui, who has conceptual abilities himself, it tops out at the Sternritter basically. So like, how do you keep basically like the gap in terms of abilities to what the protagonist can do? It was already huge as of the end of Thousand Year Blood War, and now going to Hell, it's like, even if fucking Hitsuga has trained more, training isn't going to cancel out like what the antithesis does or what the balance does. Like, those are just like abilities that you would also need conceptual abilities to defeat. You get what I'm saying? Like, a stronger Getsuga Tensho, we're past the point of a stronger Getsuga Tensho really doing it against a lot of this shit, you know? So I don't really get it. Because it's not the same as other stories where like you can just get better hockey or like your power level can just go up like Dragon Ball Z. It's like the nature of what the protagonist's powers are, like the nature of what Byakuya and Kenpachi's abilities and those things are, and the nature of what the villain's powers have become, have just made it so that you can't really have those traditional like power scaling like just catch up. It's like it's not a catch up sort of thing. It's like that is just in a different realm of type of power that you can have, you know? Anyway, sorry for the long tangent on that. Nicholas Nick, thanks for being a Yonko tier member for 14 months. Elbaf royal family guards the Nika fruit but doesn't eat it. Loki had to eat it to be able to get stronger to stop his Dami reverse-seed father plus army. That's an interesting idea, but you think it's an alternative Nika fruit or something like that. I am personally leaning towards now that is our, like, Luffy's fruit is what was stolen from there. I think it was stolen by a world government member. So Harold gets Dami reverse-seed, world government member infiltrates, takes the fruit. Maybe it's a God's Knight that we have yet to meet. And then Shanks and his crew basically retrieve that fruit a year later from the world government, and then it goes to Luffy. That's my thought process. The question mark now for me is, well, then what fruit does Loki have? That's what I'm thinking at the moment. Mihawk D. Goat, thanks for being a Yonko tier member for 22 months, man. Will One Piece villains and fights ever reach the heights of Naruto? There's simply no One Piece villain like Madara or Pain, in my opinion. Maybe Blackbeard or Emu. I think Blackbeard could definitely get there. Madara is a different case because Madara is like villains bring different things to the table, right? So like there will never be a One Piece villain like Aizen. There will never be a One Piece villain like Madara. One Piece just doesn't like. One Piece is more arc to arc based, right? So you can't really build up a name like Madara that is to be fought over that period of time, or Aizen over that period of time. It focuses on the villain of the arc, right? Like Doflamingo, like Kaido, Big Mom, stuff like that, right? Lucci. So One Piece's shot for like a really impactful villain is like Blackbeard, I think. But Blackbeard is not written in the traditional villain archetype of being like this really, really like super powerful, like untouchable force like Madara, or like this just masterful, perfect, everything in the palm of his hand type villain like Aizen. Blackbeard is more, and this is the unique aspect of Blackbeard. Like Blackbeard is more grounded in a sense that like he feels fallible, but he keeps fighting through his own way and keeps clawing his way up further and further. And he's just like this evil roach in the One Piece world that's just becoming more and more dangerous, and nothing seems to really be slowing him down. So I think Blackbeard will become an all-time great villain, but not in the sense that like we view like Madara as this villain with like a ton of aura, right? Aizen has a ton of aura. I don't think One Piece is gonna like I don't think we'll ever think of Blackbeard as this dude with a shit ton of aura in that sense. We're always gonna view Blackbeard as like that damn sneaky rat bastard that's also like you just gotta tip your hat to him, you know? Emu might be its own case, but like it doesn't help that Emu. I think we need to wait with Emu. And also like Emu's tricky just because you already see like Emu also already seems like a little bit like of a bitch in a certain way, you know, like the reaction to Joy Boy's hockey, and Emu seems kind of like a little bit of like an entitled little celestial dragon in certain ways. So I think we gotta wait and see. Enma298, thanks for the 5. You might have covered this in a recent video, but what's your best guess as to what exactly Loki's power is? So previous to I don't have a good guess right now. But for a lot, because now the recent events have shaken my previous guess. But for a long time, I believe that Loki has a different version of the Nika fruit. I believe that that's a version that like was passed down through the Albaf family line, and it's kind of the counterpart of the Nika fruit that that Luffy that Shanks stole and gave to Luffy. Okay, so I thought that there's two versions of the Nika fruit based on the fact that so many people have different beliefs as to what Nika is like. However, I now wonder, like I just said, if there is just one Nika fruit, and then that's what was stolen from the Albaf royal family from that treasure chest, and then Shanks just retrieved it, and then Luffy got it. So in that case, I have no fucking idea what Loki's fruit is. He has to have one because of the Sea Stone comments so far. But yeah, I don't know about that. World Serpent Fruits is Tapio Treviso. Yeah, that's possible. Henchme976 says, I still like the idea of him having the actual rubber fruit. Yeah, that'd be funny. That'd be funny. That'd be a funny twist. Like, if Loki actually has the rubber fruit, it just would feel like a little not dramatic to me, because it's just like, okay, so he just has what we, like, you know, what Luffy already had or whatever. Whereas I'm hoping for, like, a really fucking sick fruit reveal. The World Serpent Fruit is an interesting idea because it's been talked about quite a bit recently. And it could be very powerful. And it kind of fits, what do you call? It fits just like he almost had, like he's being written with a snake-like sort of appearance in certain ways. Werb says, definitely fair not to watch my Wano video until yours is done. I think you'll really like my video that'll come out in a few weeks. It's actually a little bit in a response to an old video of yours. Oh, that's cool, man. Also, congrats on like just the content creation journey. It seems like you're really rolling now. Seriously, man, props to you. All right, guys, we're probably gonna wind down stream in a couple minutes. So some people are like VeilQuest is saying, I think he had the Hito no Mi model Thor, an upgrade over Enno's Devil Fruit. So some people have said Thor and Surtur and things like that. I just don't know about those because like that doesn't really make sense to me, because that's like based on real world mythologies, right? And in One Piece, I feel like there's a distinction where Oda uses, like, I don't think it's ever been suggested that Norse mythology actually exists in the One Piece world. Like, there's people out there that believe in like Thor and Surtur and stuff like that. To me, it's like Oda uses references from our Norse mythology to create the One Piece world in a sense, right? Like, that's why Loki is a character in here, you know? Like Oda, like to me, Loki as is a blend of the concept in Norse mythology of Loki and Thor. Like, he's a merging of those two characters, and then that Oda named him Loki in here, but also gave him very much a Thor aesthetic and Thor hammer and everything like that. It's like Thor with a twist, but I don't think we've ever gotten a hint that like One Piece uses like there's Egyptian mythology in like there's just countries in One Piece that believe in the Egyptian gods, or that believe in the Greek gods or the Norse gods. I don't think that's a thing. So it would be kind of surprising to me if like Loki just turned out to have the Surtur fruit, because then that just opens like, okay, so because like so far the god fruits in One Piece are based on the religions in the One Piece world, like the Hito no Mi model Nika, right? So if the Surtur fruit's a thing, then it's just like, okay, in that case, do we have one for Odin, for Thor, for for fucking Zeus, Hades, like Poseidon? Like, it suddenly opens it's just like, okay, all the real world mythologies are also in the One Piece world, and then that just means like there's a million super powerful devil fruits that we've yet to see. All right, everybody. I think we're gonna call it a day here. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. I had fun watching. And yeah, I hope you guys